And we'll have
with Joe Rogan and made some comments about how nobody's going to work anymore in the future. Let's go ahead and take a listen to that.
Cars are going to be autonomous, but there's just so many desk jobs where really what people are doing is they're processing email, or they're answering the phone, and just anything that isn't moving atoms, like anything that is not physically, like doing physical work. That will obviously be the first thing. Those jobs will be and are being eliminated by AI at a very rapid pace. And ultimately, working will be optional, because you'll have robots plus AI, and we'll have, in a benign scenario, universal high income, not just universal basic income, universal high income, meaning anyone can have any products or services that they want.
So
but there will be a lot of trauma and disruption along the way.
So you anticipate a basic income from that the economy will boost to such an extent that a high income would be available to almost everybody. So we'd essentially eliminate poverty.
In the benign scenario, yes. So like
there's multiple scenarios.
There are multiple scenarios. There's a lot of ways this movie can end. Like the reason I'm so concerned about AI safety is that like one of the possibilities is the Terminator scenario. It's not 0%. So that's why it's like I'm like really banging the drum on AI needs to be maximally truth seeking. Like don't force AI to believe a lie, like that for example, the founding fathers were actually a group of diverse women, or that misgendering is worse than nuclear war. Because if that's the case, and then you get the robots and the AI becomes omnipotent, it can enforce that outcome. And then, like, unless you're a diverse woman, you're out of the picture. So we're toast.
So the benign scenario is that all the jobs are gone.
Yes.
Then what did he call it? What scenario did he call it? Basically where everyone's dead.
Yes.
Is the other scenario, which he says there's not a 0% chance. Okay, well, what percent are we talking here? Not that he knows, right? But if you talk to anyone who has been deeply involved in this technology, none of them will tell you that the like absolutely apocalyptic scenario is 0%. So we're just rolling the dice. I mean, even if it's a 1%, 1 in 100 chance of complete human extinction, for me, that's too high of a risk. I don't want to take that chance, right? That seems insane. And yet, the Elon,
Terminator scenario. That's
right. And there's a bunch of assumptions here too. He's like, oh, well, there won't be jobs anymore, but we're going to have a really high basic income. What indication do you have that there's any like likelihood of that politically occurring? Because right now you have just like a bunch of oligarchs who are consolidating all of the money and power. And they are going to find us to be, if they've made it so that labor is useless, like they're going to find us useless. They're going to want to keep us around for what? For what reason? So even that is like very optimistic and very hopeful. And that's the benign scenario that they're contemplating here. And then Sagar, Elon is interesting in all of this. As I would say a bit of a cautionary tale, because he's right that he came into AI development very concerned about safety. Mm-hmm. That's why with Sam Altman, he sets up OpenAI. The idea is we're going to keep this as a nonprofit. We're not going to make it profit driven. It's going to be open, right? That's the open in OpenAI, so people can see the development and open source models and whatever. And then when he realizes that, other companies, and Sam is taking this in this other direction, and other companies are joining the AI race as well, and it's basically it's just an arms race, both between the companies and between the US and China. He's like, okay, well, I guess I'm just joining the arms race here. And I think it's utterly delusional to think that you're going to keep AI quote unquote safe because it doesn't think the founding farmers are diverse women. I mean, that's his view that he's articulated multiple times, is he believes that if it's like an anti-woke AI, then somehow that's going to like save us all and mitigate us from the most consequential catastrophes. And I think that is so incredibly delusional as to defy like any kind of logic.
Well, I think that both are actually very dangerous, both woke AI and so-called anti-woke AI, because the whole point around it is actually about society and having feedback into both, and that neither should be controlled at a centralized level.
I mean, I think
from
either,
an oligarch.
it's sort of irrelevant whether it's what, like that just completely misses the question of
I
what
don't
the
know
problems are.
I don't know if it's irrelevant because, I mean, part of the thing is with oligarchical capture, as you can all see with the Trump people, is that they're incredibly fickle and they believe nothing. So
Yeah.
they could also, you know, it wasn't that long ago that pronouns were in bio.
Right, but
for
think
everybody.
about like when Elon intervened and tried to make Grok less woke, it ended up within a matter of days calling itself
Yes.
Mecha Hitler.
No, that's what I'm
right,
talking
and that's
about.
The, that's
Right,
the thing
exactly.
is that we have this, I think, illusion that they understand what this technology is. They don't. They don't. This is not something they programmed. It's something they grew. It's an alien intelligence that they grew. That's the best way to think of it. And so they try to do all these tests to figure out, like, is it deceiving us? Is it doing nefarious things? Is it gonna, like, you know, is it gonna break out of the lab and copy itself? And is it going to conform when we tell it to change how it operates? Is it gonna actually conform? And they don't actually know. They do these tests and these experiments, and in many instances, they find that it will lie to them, it will deceive them, it will try to blackmail them, it will copy itself onto another server to try to preserve its original objectives. And they'll do some clues to try to fix that one, to plug that one hole. They have no idea whether they've fixed the problem. They have no idea what's going on under the surface. No clue. And that's where we are today with the limited, you know, level of AI development that we have today. That's to say nothing of where they want these things ultimately to go.
Well, let's pick up on that. Ross Douthat just did a great interview with an AI safety advocate. D4, guys, let's go ahead and play it.
Artificial intelligence is able to start navigating the real world, right? So, because advances in robotics, like right now, I just watched a video showing cutting-edge robots struggling to open a refrigerator door and stock a refrigerator, right? So would you expect that those advances would be supercharged as well? So it isn't just,
Yes.
you know, podcasters and AGI researchers who are replaced, but plumbers and electricians are replaced by robots?
Yes, exactly. And that's going to be a huge shock. I think that most people are not really expecting something like that. They're expecting that we sort of have AI progress that looks kind of like it does today, where companies run by humans are gradually like tinkering with new robot designs and gradually like figuring out how to make the AI good at X or Y. Whereas in fact, it will be more like you already have this army of superintelligences that are better than humans at every intellectual task, and also that are better at learning new tasks fast and better at figuring out how to design stuff. And then that army of superintelligences is the thing that's figuring out how to automate the plumbing job, which means that they're going to be able to figure out how to automate it much faster than an ordinary tech company full of humans would be able to figure out.
So this guy is the co-author of a sort of forecast of where AI is heading, called AI 2027, which I read through. And, you know, the near-term predictions are much more reasonable, and the longer they go out, obviously it becomes more difficult to make predictions of what it's going to look like. But what he's pointing to here is, you know, myself including you, and I think there's a lot of reasons to be skeptical about the idea and the promise of AGI and what this is, if it's actually going to be as transformative as people are saying. And what he's explaining there is the reason you're going to hit this point of exponential growth in terms of the capability is because it's increasingly going to be taken out of the hands of humans. And you're going to have AI training AI, where it's, you know, constant improvement, where you have effectively like an army of AI that is researching and improving itself. And the humans are just like the high-level supervisors who aren't even really capable of completely supervised because they don't actually know. They do have to sleep. They do get sick. They do have limited ability to like really understand what's happening under the hood here. And then it's in that scenario, once you hit that point, where the AI is effectively training the new AI, that you hit this kind of like exponential growth curve, and where things really start to get potentially very weird. And obviously he's not the only one that's saying. There are a lot of people, I mean, I think most people who actually are deeply in touch with this industry, and whether or not they support it or not, that's the direction they all see this ultimately going in, which is why you see this race now for whoever can develop that ability, whatever level of an AGI or whatever you want to call that, whoever can develop that ability, they're going to be the ones who are able to hit that exponential growth curve and win the AI arms race that is unfolding right now without any of our desire or consent.
There's two scenarios, and they're both so bad. One is that they're right and that this will all progress. And I still don't really believe that they're right. But
it's hard to.
The way that they seriously take it and keep saying it out loud over and over again, at the very least, if the richest and most powerful people in the world believe something to be true, I have to take it seriously, right?
Yeah.
Because they're the people who could, they have the best ability to enact that. Now, I think a lot of the times they are talking their own book to inflate their massive stock prices. I mean, even X, the reason Elon is obsessed with AI right now is because XAI acquired X, and the entire valuation of his private $40 billion boondoggle is built upon the promise of AI and using Twitter data to use it as some sort of training bot for Grok.
Yeah.
There's no profitability in Twitter, okay? It's a dead business. It's horrible. But the point also, though, is if it fails, is that we're basically left with some sort of .com style, scenario, which blows out the economy. I was looking at a stat. If you bought the S&P in March of 2000, you did not return to baseline for 11 years. That's how long it took for you to actually return for what it was. Now, obviously, you should have bought in between, your dollar cost averaging and all that. But that's a lot of value that was wiped out. 11 years of a dead zone in the U.S. economy.
And the .com thing is instructive as well, though, because yes, a bunch of these internet companies failed, but the internet was transformational.
That's correct. Yes.
So you can have a bubble pop and still have the technological revolution, for good or for ill, that we are facing down right now.
And Bubble Watch, let's put C6 up on the screen, please. Michael Burry of the Big Short fame apparently now has some massive put options against the value of Palantir and of Nvidia, two of the high-flying AI stocks now currently. I mean, you can do the math for yourself in terms of the value of the amount that he's betting on those companies, and he's poised to profit massively if those stocks do go down. Look, he and himself, in terms of the release for everything, part of it could be publicity, but I mean, those are real positions held by obviously a legendary investor. I will say he has been wrong a lot recently, but you only had to be right once, as he famously was in the movie, and you should always take what the guy says seriously. I think a little bit more seriously that I take is put D5 on the screen. This John Cassidy, he's from the New Yorker. This was he wrote a little while back, but it was about that efficiency story that I talked about, the AI profits drought and the lessons of history. He is the author of that book, I can't recommend enough, .con, specifically on the .com crash back in 2000. And he links the same stuff that we were talking about how the inability to find efficiency for some 95% of users is that even though we can cover AI job loss, that the big promises of productivity and all that are not manifesting themselves yet, which is the only thing propping up the Nvidia stock price, OpenAI valuation, $13 billion revenue, trillions of dollars in deals, AMD, all of these other things, data center construction. That's the only thing that's propping up everything right now. And so if there's a crash, it will not only impact overall stock valuations, it will also suck huge amounts of money out of the economy, investment, capital expenditure, construction. It's just like housing. The housing crash didn't just crash housing. It crashed everything for a long time. That's my big fear right now. And by the way, I think this one is more likely than the AI bots take over and kill us all. I think the crash is the most likely scenario.
Could be both.
I really do.
Could be both.
Well, yeah, and you could have.
But
I don't know.
Let's take the crash scenario. Let's take for granted that that's the direction we're heading. I mean, think about where we are right now. We just listened to Elon Musk. Obviously, Elon has a very large personal financial incentive to push the narrative that AI is going to be this incredibly transformational force. Now imagine you are a large institutional investor, and all these guys who are smart and rich and powerful are telling you basically listen, I'm going to be the one to make it an AGI, and I'm going to be effectively God King of the universe when that happens. That is a very powerful incentive for you to invest with them, isn't it? So they do have huge personal incentives to portray AI as it's going to be this completely revolutionary thing, the likes of which we've literally never experienced before in human history on this accelerated timeline. And so you better be on the team of the, oligarch God King that achieves AGI first, or you're going to be left in the cold like all the rest of us suckers asking for our UBI from the federal government or whatever handouts and scraps they feel like giving us. So it is a pretty compelling, pretty powerful story and pretty powerful self-incentive, like huge incentive that people have in their own selfish interest to push that narrative. So I think it is worth keeping that in mind when you're considering the promise. Now, like the guy that we just showed you from Ross Deldat, he does not have that, and he left OpenAI because he was concerned that they were no longer, worried about the morals and ethics, and he did not see a way that they could achieve what's called AI alignment, where the AI basically stays in the box that you want it to stay in. And so that's why he left and is now doing this work on AI safety. But yeah, there is definitely a very possible scenario where investors come to realize, I don't think that this thing is living up to the hype. And you've got all of these trillions of dollars in this sort of like, self-licking ice cream cone economic system going on here with NVIDIA at the core of it. And you could easily see how that could all come crashing down very quickly in an instant. Or, China's DeepSeek or another competitor gains a significant edge and looks like it's going to be what gets adopted globally. They have some advantages in that regard. Number one, the fact that it is open source, so anybody in the world can, download their weights and mess with it and adopt it and whatever. That could be another thing that could cause the bubble to completely crash. So, there's a number of scenarios. One is it's just completely fake and it's a bubble and it crashes and we never get beyond making videos of Tupac fighting Biggie in WWF or whatever. The productivity gains never really materialize. It's like moderately disruptive, but nothing really super crazy. That's probably the best case scenario. There's a scenario where the bubble crashes, but it's still, the AI development actually is still that level of transformational. And then you have the tail end, truly apocalyptic scenarios, which you can't put off the table when you consider that the people who work with this stuff the most say, this is a real possibility. We have to keep in mind, they are trying to develop an intelligence greater than human beings. We've never coexisted on the planet with an intelligence that's greater than ours. What does that mean? I think you have to take seriously the upending of the order that we currently dominate, and that we are ourselves trying to upend that order. How are we going to be able to predict what are going to be the actions and the outcomes of what this super intelligence does? Are they going to treat us the way we treat ants, where it's basically like, they're kind of in the way. Let's I don't want them in my house. Let me just get them out of here. We genuinely don't know, and definitionally do not have the mental capacity to really try to figure it out.
Yeah. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com. Turning now to the economy, a lot of relevant news. Just going to put this up here on the screen. The CEO of Kraft Heinz has now said they have the worst consumer sentiment in decades, pointing out the drop in the number of consumers who are buying staples. They lowered their sales outlook and that the feeling of U.S. shoppers has fallen, quote, to a historic low. The company now expects full organic net sales to be down 3 to 3.5%, with slower growth also in emerging markets and pressure in the U.S. retail. They said that higher prices from inflation and expected headwinds from curtailed food stamp funding were creating a tough environment for U.S. shoppers, that the drop in their overall sales has led to some 17% drop in their overall stock price compared with the 17% rise in the S&P 500. Higher prices from inflation, food stamps, funding are all creating a, quote, tough environment, they say, for shoppers. And I think that's really grim. We talked previously about the McDonald's CEO. Now, I'm not saying Heinz products and McDonald's and any of that is healthy, but it's indicative of consumer sentiment of behavior. And what he was showing is people were skipping breakfast. And I think a lot of comments were, oh, well, if they're skipping McDonald's breakfast and eating breakfast at home, then maybe that's a good thing. But there's not actually a ton of data that even necessarily shows that because of the grocery price increase. And so the fact that staples themselves have become not only more expensive, but people are deciding not to buy them, I think is one of those edge indicators in the grocery store to say, oh man, things are really buying.
Yeah.
Right?
People are cutting back on ketchup
and mustard, I mean, by the way, how much ketchup are people eating? How many times do people buy ketchup? I buy it every 6 months.
Oh,
but I
wait
don't
till
really
you
like
have
ketchup.
a toddler.
Oh,
and
really?
You're gonna see how much ketchup your household can go through. Ketchup, I find
if you never give them ketchup, then they will never know.
disgusting because of what my son would like dip his apple slices in it and everything. I was like, oh. That killed any sort of appetite I ever had for ketchup. So our family has long cut back on ketchup because I refuse to use it. It's disgusting. Yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and put C2 up on the screen because it's not just Kraft Heinz. You also have Chipotle. I actually didn't even realize this. They have this very young customer base. They really cater to them. They've been like, there's like a whole gym bro tie-in. Here's a good way to get lots of protein for relatively inexpensive price. Easy, relatively affordable, tastes good. I personally like Chipotle. I know you're a big Chipotle fan, Sagar, but
I used to be, not anymore. At the current price, I'm no longer a consumer. It's too much.
So anyway, they say millennials and Gen Zers have helped power Chipotle sales despite rising menu prices and slowdowns at rival chains. In recent months, though, a harsher economic reality is set in. Rising student loan payments, stagnant wage growth, and rising health insurance costs have bumped burritos down younger consumers' priority list. They're just eating with us less frequently, and they're eating at home more often. The Chipotle CEO Scott Boatwright said in an interview, and their stock is getting trashed right now. And guess what? They're not the only ones. I mean, you have the top line of the stock market, just keeps going up, up, up. That's all because of these tech stocks. Nvidia leading the charge, but other tech stocks that are AI enabled, these sort of like consumer staple type of companies, they are actually really suffering and underperforming because you see this this consumer pullback. And we could put C3 up on the screen, which is going to have a major impact as well. So we covered yesterday, the Trump administration was saying we're not going to pay any SNAP benefits. A judge came in and said you actually have to. You have to tap these emergency funds. So now they're saying they're going to pay half of the SNAP benefits for November. However, there continues to be, those funds haven't hit for people yet. Here we are November 4th, and there's no real telling when they will hit. So an Agriculture Department official who oversees the SNAP program said in a court filing that, quote, there are procedural difficulties that states will likely experience, which would affect November SNAP benefits reaching households in a timely manner and in the correctly reduced amounts. For some states, the required system changes that have to be implemented could take weeks or several months and could lead to payment errors and significant delays. So for the 43 million people who are on SNAP benefits, this is just an absolute, it's an absolute catastrophe. And of course it's going to have a ripple effect throughout the economy. And some of the places that are going to be hit the hardest are actually stores in rural America, where you have more impoverished populations, and a lot of the revenue from the store comes from EBT, comes from the SNAP program. So, even though you've got this ruling and the Trump administration now saying, okay, we'll give you half, which is already, a 50% reduction, is a massive, massive hit. No telling when they'll even get access to those funds either.
One of the things, this is where it comes down to cost. Let's say with Chipotle, and generally. Like, I remember when it was $6 a bowl. This actually was not that long ago. And I used to eat Chipotle 5 days a week, literally, back in my early 20s. There was one right next to where I used to live. I was on name basis. Now, though, they had this recent advertisement, I'm not sure if you've seen. It's carne asada and red chimichurri. I was like, all right, gotta try it, okay? It's like catnip. Yeah. So if you look at the overall price, when I was done, keep in mind, we live in a high cost of living area, it was $22 with tax. Look, again, maybe...
The red chimichurri, though, is good.
Listen, it's good. I loved it. I'm not going to say I didn't like it. Was it $22 good? I don't know. Again, maybe boomer brain, but that's one of those where, I don't drink alcohol. That's kind of what I expect to pay if I go to a mid-tier restaurant, right? I want to be sitting getting some service, not literally something in a paper bag that's wrapped in foil. They're eating on a couch when you're watching TV. That's just, in my head, that should cost around $8 to $10. So $22, not happening anymore. And you just have to think about how, again, for young people, especially if you eat out a lot, of course, it's about convenience. And one of it is, it used to be so that it was a little bit more expensive to eat out, but not all that much more. And maybe you could justify the value in your time. Like I said, at $13 to $18 for a bowl, depending on what you're getting in there, how is that possibly even worth it anymore? You have to cook at home.
But then
there's
you can't
no
blame them either, because look at how expensive beef is.
Right, but exactly. So then you're like, okay, so I'm going to eat at home. It's like, oh, oh no. Yeah, exactly. You're paying for carne asada there, or you can pay for it at Costco. You're paying a shit ton for it, basically no matter what. That is the part where, when you see how it pervades, even influencer culture. I think I've talked about this, about those YouTube channels where it's like cook like your grandma from the Great Depression. Those channels saw a huge explosion over the last couple of years. That's part of why is home, it's so exorbitantly expensive. As stuff that was once not even, I mean, would you call Chipotle luxury? Like, I wouldn't. It was $6. I even remember in New York, you would pay $7 or something like that. It just was not that expensive. It was, even in Midtown, it was like $7.50, I'm pretty sure, if I recall. Now, I mean, what, $15 probably for what it is? That's a lot of money. And you have that for everything, because it's not just defense of Chipotle, it's all fast food.
And consider what the minimum wage is, right?
Yeah,
still
$7.25 an hour, something
yeah,
like that.
and I mean, even in states that have increased it, maybe they've upped it maybe to $15. So you're working an hour to get one Chipotle bowl.
I don't even know if it wouldn't buy a drink. It definitely wouldn't. With tax, where I live, it would be about $15,
well,
I think.
And this is really the story of our economy. Put C4 up on the screen. This is the story and the reality of our economy today. So now the top 10% of income earners account for 50%. So half of all spending is being done by the top 10% of earners. And so you have this incredibly lopsided economy. And then, of course, what happens is all the incentive, like if you are a business wanting to make money, is to cater to the people who have the money. Who have money to spend. And so increasingly, the economy becomes more and more tilted and lopsided towards catering to the affluent. There's a bunch of, let's go ahead and put, Kobayashi Letter did a long thread with a bunch of other indicators about the reality of the economy today. Let's go ahead and start these. They write, the elephant in the room, AI stocks are outperforming consumer stocks by 20% plus over the last 60 days. And as AI investment exceeds $1 trillion per year, car repossessions are at 2009 levels. There are two U.S. economies, rich versus poor, and AI is the lifeline of it all. And really think about that, because overwhelmingly the people who hold stocks are the wealthy. And so they're benefiting from this massive, continued growth in the stock market. But if you're just a regular wage earner trying to make it, you are getting screwed. Let's put the next element up on the screen. So here are the sort of consumer-focused brands whose stock prices are suffering. They say that on the other side of the table is a more bleak picture as opposed to the AI stocks. Consumer-facing stocks are getting crushed. Latest earnings season only underscored that. Take a look at the year-to-date performance of these consumer stocks. General Mills and Kraft Heinz, which we mentioned before, are in a bear market. Put the next one up on the screen. The economy is particularly bad for Americans who are seeking entry-level jobs. The U.S. unemployment rate for youth graduates aged 20 to 24, so people are, just coming into the job market, has averaged 8.1% over the last 3 months. That's the highest in 4 years. This is up sharply from under 4% just 2 years ago when the AI boom began. So it certainly looks like AI adoption is starting to take a hit on the job market, especially with new college grads in particular, or new associate degree holders. And let's put this last one up on the screen as well. This is a look at auto repossessions. We are now have seen a huge increase in just the past year, and vehicle seizures are at the highest level that we have seen since 2009. So you have a huge spike in 2009, Great Recession, then it declines, then it climbs back up and reaches a peak during the COVID era, which makes sense again when people are losing their jobs and out of work and struggling through COVID. Then it declines, and now we are back on the march up. So on the one hand, you have these, record earnings for NVIDIA and all of this, excitement about AI and these tech stocks that are just going up and up and up. And then the rest of the economy tells a very different story about what the reality is for people. And that's what I mentioned in our A-Block, our election coverage. In Trump's first term at this point, people were happy with where the economy was. Some 60+% said the economy is good versus those saying it was poor. Now it's flipped. And it's 70+% who say that the economy is actually poor, and only maybe 25% that say it is doing well. So for people's own experience in their life, they are really feeling the pinch and feeling the pain in spite of what the top line on the stock market is doing.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com. You want a good transition as to why I'm talking about the stuff that I talk about, and the people who rule us, and the level of systems and the baked-in assumptions that make it so that your life isn't going to be affordable? Let me all enlighten you about a little thing that's going on in my home state of Texas. Let's go and put this up here on the screen, okay? This is like the hidden gerontocracy that rules all of us. So the Texas voters today will take to their ballot boxes to vote on a little proposition. Now, that proposition is worded in such a way for property tax relief. Now, who could be against property tax relief, right? Nobody likes paying property taxes. It's horrible. Everybody wants to vote to cut them. But here's the little thing that they decided to, hide inside of it. What they decided to hide is that actually what a lot of Texas voters are almost certainly to greenlight is something called the Texas Older Adult Homestead Exemption, which would not only will the state pick up the tab for homeowners under age of 65, but those 65 and older would gain an extra benefit if the new property tax bills are approved by the voters. The current homestead exemption would be increased from current homestead exemption for those 65 or older is $110,000. That's already an increase from $50,000 2 years ago. The exemption would then jump to $160,000, and a total of $200,000 would combine with the new thing. What that means is that you get to write off a significant portion of your overall property value whenever it comes to your actual property tax. 2 million Texas state residents would actually be affected by this. And what it would also do is cut the school taxes that people who are 65 and up would pay by up to 50%. So the way that this is worded is basically, and by the way, again, I'm under no illusions. This shit's going to pass 100% because everybody doesn't want to pay property tax. Well, and this gets to what we were talking about earlier. What most people in Texas love is usually like, oh, we have no income tax. Well, okay, that's great. But it means that property tax is going to finance the vast majority of local services. Well, who wants to pay for those local services? Well, the people who benefit from those local services, let's say emergency services and others, and they're all financed, and this is a little reductive, but elderly people, by and large, consume a large amount of those services. But what they have decided to do is to rig the property tax system such that they will get their school taxes cut. And the justification is that they don't have children in schools anymore, so they should not have to pay for it. Now, let's all just sit with that, is that even though older people in the past had to pay for their children's schools, their decision is that because they don't use the schools, they shouldn't have to pay for them anymore. And what the net result means is that people who are younger, who don't get a property tax homestead exemption, even though their property values are also exploding, not only will have to pay property tax, they will have to shift the burden of school taxes onto them. This is the type of hidden nonsense which makes it so that being young and having a family in this country becomes unaffordable. And these are the types of people who vote. And it's like I'm so enraged by it because I'm watching this happen in every state across the country. New York State, by the way, very similar homestead exemption. This elderly exemption tax is built on this idea of so-called fixed income. And the theory behind it is that people who are on Social Security should not be, quote, forced out of their homes. Now, first of all, they get a cost of living adjustment from the Social Security Administration of inflation. That's number one. Number two is, at the end of the day, who is the state supposed to serve? What is Texas so proud of? All of these millions of people moving from across the country for affordable housing to send their children to school. They're now going to have to be stuck with more of a bill because these elderly people don't want to pay for their children's school. We all live in a society. And just by the way, in terms of this whole we don't use the schools, so we shouldn't have to pay for them. I'm not morbidly obese. I don't go on dialysis. 1% of the whole federal budget is for dialysis. I am not a Medicare recipient, a Social Security recipient. I don't get any sort of exemption. I can't opt out. By the way, do you know how many childless people? I know I lived where I currently live now for years with no children and didn't use the schools. I still had to pay the school tax. Childless people all over the country have to pay school tax if they're under the age of 65. I just think it's totally absurd the way this is happening. And this is, again, a nationwide thing, which is gaining steam, in particular in areas where a lot of younger people are moving. So let's put B8, please, up on the screen, because there's a similar measure down in Atlanta and in Fulton County where they similarly want to do some sort of cap for property tax and schools, specifically for people who are 65 and above. This, by the way, is only an expansion of what is already the case in almost every state in the country, which is adopting these 65 plus property tax exemptions for people who are on so-called fixed income. And what it does is it locks elderly people into their homes, and you basically are supercharging the whole nation as California, where when people in California, you know, they bought a house at $200,000, they lock the increase in the amount of their property tax such that they don't have to pay the actual market rate. But when they sell the house, the person who buys that house still has to pay the property tax of the newly assessed market value. And what it means is that boomers never leave a shit ton of housing stock. So this is kind of what I'm talking about the hidden, you know, things underneath that make it completely unaffordable. And that frankly, like, it's not even a political, there's no politician that can just wave a wand and do away with it, because here in Texas, where I'm from, this is massively popular. The way they phrase it is for elderly people. Most people are like, I want property tax relief, and they don't even look at it. Well, they don't even understand what the benefit, like what the, you know, the impetus behind it is.
What I would say is this is actually part of a political vision that is being effectuated, which is, there's a number of parts to this. I mean, number one, Republicans have long had a war on public education effectively. And, you know, this is the push for vouchers and against teacher unions and all of, you know, you see lots of anti-teacher rhetoric coming from the right, and you long have. And so it's, you know, that's one piece of this. Like the excuse to cut the budget for the schools is something that Republicans are always excited to take up. That's number one. Number two, you have in the type of voters you're talking about, they're very politically powerful because they vote.
Yes.
They vote, they contribute to politicians, they do the volunteer work, they show up. Like, and so, yes, they've amassed a large amount of political power. And so politicians very much cater to them. So then you have the long-term national bipartisan project of inserting sort of like this hyper individualism where it's everybody up by their bootstraps, every man for himself. And so it manifests in ways like this, where you said this comment about like they have to live in society. Like we all have to live in society.
But they don't
together.
believe in society.
But well, and that's the thing is that is an ideology that has been perpetuated in this country for decades now. Of basically like, who cares about society? You get yours. And I think we're at the like extreme like tail end of that ideological project of where it feels like the economy is very uncertain, AI is coming, climate crisis, like existential politics, all of these sort of, you know, all of these sort of crises that are mounting and right in front of our faces. And so you have more and more people who are in a mentality of like, I'm just gonna get mine. You see that all the way up to the White House, by the way, of like, you know, I'm gonna get mine with my crypto deals and building out my ballroom and doing whatever the hell I want while I can. So I think that ideology also infects the public, and not to make too much of it, but is, you know, this is like one small instance of the way that plays out in the public policy.
But see,
sphere.
I don't think it's small, because Florida is about to try and abolish all property tax.
Yeah.
That is one of the oldest states in the country. Like, do we all understand that? Is that these places, which are zero income tax, are now going after property tax to make it so that all of the people who are young, who move to those states for affordability, get the entire tax burden shifted onto them.
It's deeply regressive.
It is not only deeply
it's
regressive. Think
the
about this. I mean, look, you know, I'm going to sound like an uber lib now at this point. Who do you think is floating the state of Florida, literally, whenever it comes to hurricane relief? The federal government. Who pays the vast majority of the income for a lot of their residents? The federal government, and all of us via Social Security. Who's the one paying for all their health care? All of us via Medicare. This is the stuff that drives me crazy. They have no qualms lobbying for their, you know, their tax-free Social Security, every tax benefit in the world. They are the wealthiest generation in the entire country. They make it so they lock up the housing stock, you know, increase vastly the amount of wealth that they have, and then lobby to make it so that they don't have to pay very much for any of it on a tax level, and shift the burden to people with young children. All of society is basically structured this way. You know, I was talking recently about the health insurance thing, and the thing is if you look at the overall increase right now for not just Obamacare, but in general, it's some 15%. Well, guess what? We are paying hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month, the average person who has, let's say, 2 children. People on Medicare, they're always complaining because they have to pay $100 or $200 a month. It's like, what a joke. And the theory is that, that they paid into it. No, the vast majority of Medicare recipients receive vastly more dollars from the federal government than they ever paid into the system. And I just think what it does is that they're privatized. We have socialism for the old, and we have rugged individualism for the young. And they like it this way. This is part of the issue where the shifting tax burden and in terms of the cost of living crisis is dramatically affecting family formation, marriage, the entire American dream. And at the very same time, the states which have the most elderly influence are actually making it to shift even more of the tax burden on the people who are younger. You even see it here in the federal government. Who got the best tax cut? People who are old, Social Security. There's no organized effort for anybody who's young. Like I've been thinking about an AARP, one of the most successful lobbying organizations literally ever. And of course, nobody can crosswise them as politicians. Why don't we have that for people who are like 35 and under? Like, why don't we have, like 65 and under? There's no like unity or there's no unity, sympathy, or general consensus for a lot of people. So I guess it's a long-winded way of saying what you're, backing up your point about society. Like people genuinely, especially the wealthiest and the elderly here, seem to actually believe that they made it on their own and not because of a variety of structural factors which were societally based. Yeah. And they're now telling the young people, screw you, like make it on your own. And I think that's sick.
If you give up on like we live in a society and we're kind of all in this together. The country literally doesn't work. Even if you think about right now, we were talking about Trump is threatening New York City funding, right?
Yeah.
Californians and New Yorkers are looking at how much they send to the federal government and how much they get back and are going, fuck you. Fuck you.
I feel that way right now.
We float the rest of the country.
It's true.
You look at your Mississippis and your Arkansas. Like you're nothing without us, New York and California and, these blue states that have massive job creation and wealth and like send more tax revenue or net send more to the federal government than they're getting back. And so when that logic starts to take hold, you start to get, I've seen people calling for, hey, you know what? We're not sending our tax revenue to the federal government. We will send it to a trust to be held. And then when you give us what we're supposed to get, then we'll send you the tax revenue. That's the sort of thing that it leads to on a national level when you lose the idea of this is a society and we're all doing this thing together. And, there's been a lot of bricks laid on the path to that place. But Trump, as with many things, is accelerating in that direction when he is explicitly withholding billions of dollars from states that he doesn't like the politics of.
Don't you feel that way?
And is openly threatening New York City right now because they're voting for someone that he doesn't like.
Don't you feel that way? I do. Like with this bailout to Argentina, and every time we have to pay our quarterly taxes, I'm just like, oh man, I guess it makes me, it's one of those where, look, I don't want to fall victim to the same sense of the boomers, but when you see what actually gets prioritized at the federal level, I focus on the property tax thing. That is the one which has the most impact on your actual life, is schools. If you're young, is schools. And the fact that these people want to opt out because they, quote, don't use it anymore, while at the same time taking the socialized benefits that all of us are paying into and floating them, makes it's infuriating to a level that not nearly enough people have bought into. And what's even worse is a lot of people are like, oh, well, why would you ever want to tax anybody? I'm like, well, do we have schools or not? Like, we have to have a school.
You want to live in a society where people are just like completely uneducated and illiterate and only the rich can send their kids to private schools. And that's the society you want to live in?
We've already lived in that society and we all collectively decided we're not doing that anymore. And now there's like this new war basically to say that public education, and I'm not some free college guy, okay? That's about higher education. I'm talking about K through 12. Did we not all have some sort of a consensus whenever it came to that? And we have a lot of local input. I think it's great that everybody fights about what's happening in schools. It's good. That because it means you care about your education. You should have a say. But the point actually comes back to the reason you have a say is because you pay into it. Right. And then these people don't even want to pay for it because they're not using it. They want some a la carte system for it. And this is the reason I'm raising the alarm is that as they amass more wealth, more political power, this is now happening in almost every major state in the country. California has it for boomers. Now Texas is going to expand it. Florida literally wants to eliminate it. If you are under the age of 35, if you have children, you are the person who is massively going to see your property tax bill, and it has to increase from somewhere. And in a lot of cases, they're making it so that the burden, and again, you're already paying exorbitant amounts for healthcare, for basic costs of living. This is a singular part where public education, something we used to be able to rely on, is now actually going to be made more expensive for the actual families, for people who are going to be the future, which I think is totally wrong. Okay, let's get to the economy. We've talked a ton. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.
At the same time, we could put B1 up on the screen. This is how Zoran was closing out his campaign while Andrew Cuomo was threatening New Yorkers. Here you have Zoran walking across the Brooklyn Bridge and, out of the clubs, dancing with everybody and being out and about with taxi drivers and really just trying to be, in the streets with the people. At the same time, you had Hakeem Jeffries continuing to be asked about Zoran and whether he sees him as the future of the party. Hakeem Jeffries did very belatedly and very begrudgingly endorse Zoran in this race and get behind him once the writing was on the wall. Hey y'all, how's it going?
Hello.
I believe we are live now.
Oh, we are. Oh my.
I think so. Happy election day, election night 2025. Everybody's super psyched. We got Emily in the Winsome Sears party, after party, election results.
You mean victory
party.
victory party, Crystal?
Victory party.
Are the vibes, is it giving victory over there, Emily?
It's giving nursing home. We have been stuck on a loop of 70s hits for the last couple of hours, and Decision Desk HQ has already called the race for Abigail Spanberger, and it's 7:39 p.m. So I think it was obviously expected here, but vibes are low.
That one is expected. So just to go through for people what our plan is for the night. So we've got Emily on the ground in Virginia at the Winsome Sears event. We've got Ryan and Griffin up in New York. They're going to be popping in shortly from a Zoran Mamdani party. And then obviously all of us here, we've got some guests coming in. Weigel's going to join us. We may get a few other, Ryan and Griffin will be pulling in people through the night at that New York event as well. And in terms of the races that we're going to be covering, we've got the Virginia poll is already closed, 7 p.m. So we'll be taking a look at all the statewide races. Also, maybe the most indicative thing will actually be the House of Delegates races and how many flips Democrats are able to secure there. So we'll have our eye on that. New Jersey, obviously the statewide races will be paying close attention to. Zoran, what's the margin of victory there, assuming that he is victorious and there's not some totally crazy out of nowhere Cuomo or Sliwa upset. There's also some other races around the country that are really interesting too. Saga is very locked in on a particular ballot measure in Texas. You want to explain that for all of us? Saga?
Yes.
That's basically the only reason he's here, if we're all being
No. Of course, I'm here. If I had a few things move around, I was able to join. I can't not be here for election day. It's always exciting just to see people turn out and to actually see some of the narratives get busted, and then we get to at least talk about something interesting, for the next year or so ahead of the midterms. I am locked in on Proposition 11 in Texas, which I gave everybody a preview of, the increasing the property tax exemption for the elderly and the disabled. I do believe it is a slow road to gerontocracy, and it is actually one of the more consequential votes for tonight. So I'm locked in. I will give everybody an update when the polls do close. I think it's 9 p.m. Eastern. So as soon as we get our results.
Can you explain a little bit more about why you're totally zeroed in on this?
For those who didn't watch our show today, it is an effort by boomers to reduce their property tax and school taxes because they don't believe in living in a society anymore, and they believe that all young people should share the burden for them, even though we share the burden for them. So, it's basically just, the most selfish generation in American history. And I do think it is, I genuinely actually do think it is a tidal wave of something that will be coming to a red state near you, and people should be paying attention to it.
I was going to just ask, actually, what's the partisan, as you see it, what's the partisan breakdown?
There is none. Nobody's lobbying against it because nobody wants to be against nobody wants to be for more property taxes because people hate property taxes, but it's already a zero income state. Anyway, I don't want to waste too much time. I know it's more of a pet issue.
Yes, you do.
So in addition to that, there's also in Maine, there's actually really interesting couple of ballot initiatives there that Graham Plattner's campaign has been organizing around. They said they've had their volunteers make 4,000 calls on these issues. One in particular that has been spearheaded, pushed by Leonard Leo, who Emily could tell us more about, but major influential conservative donor. In any case, he has been pushing this measure to more limit voting, absentee voting in particular. I think things like election day registration, et cetera. So Graham has been organizing against that ballot measure. So it'll be an interesting test of the strength of his organizing and his campaign there. We have it in addition to the New York City mayoral race, we have some other interesting mayoral races across the country. There's a Minneapolis mayoral race where you've got a lefty candidate, Omar Fatah, who has gotten a lot of national attention, challenging the incumbent, Jacob Fry. I think right now people are thinking that the incumbent is going to be able to prevail in that race, but we'll see. Hard to know exactly what's going to happen and what the turnout will ultimately be. There's also a race in Seattle. Similar dynamics. You've got an incumbent mayor and you've got a lefty. This one, a woman, Katie, I'm forgetting her last name because I just was learning about this.
Katie Wilson.
Katie Wilson,
Katie Wilson
versus Bruce Harrell in Seattle. And so she's the lefty outsider challenging him. She's got the backing of some progressive advocacy groups, some labor unions. That one, at least according to Polymarket, she is favored in. She won. They have like a jungle primary. She won in the primary. So then it's the top two candidates, the general election. So people feel like she has an edge. But, you know, again, we'll see what happens there. And then, of course, there's the California ballot proposition. This one I don't think is in doubt at all, but nonetheless, a very significant story. You know, Trump has decided they're going to do these mid-century redistricting efforts to try to secure more seats for Republicans. And Gavin Newsom was the first Democrat to come in and say, we can play that game too. So in retaliation, we are going to redraw California districts. However, the catch was that currently California's districts are drawn by a nonpartisan commission. So they had to put the question to voters. Do you want to change that and allow us to draw partisan maps in retaliation? One thing that is already, you know, noteworthy, like I said, I don't think it's in doubt the outcome. They're going to vote to allow the partisan redistricting to occur. It's going to be a large margin. But one thing that's been really noteworthy is the turnout there has actually been extraordinary. And the only thing that they're voting on is this one ballot measure. So, I mean, the true test of like how energized Democrats and some independents, I'm sure as well, but how energized people are to vote against Trump and be able to, you know, have to understand the sort of Byzantine process and then feel a certain way about it and then go out to vote for this one specific thing is a kind of an incredible, you know, statement on how energized they are around their, you know, dislike of what's going on with this president.
The story of the night, the story of the night is going to be all about kind of Democratic resistance and then kind of understanding different margins. So, for example, in the Virginia gubernatorial race, like we're not really just looking for the victor at this point. It's not really in question whether it's going to be Spander or we're looking at, as we talked with Logan earlier this morning, whether they're going to be able to break that coveted kind of 10%. They want to match and or outperform the victory of 2017, which was a definitive statement against Donald Trump. I do believe in the state of New Jersey, they are looking to at least outperform 2024, where Donald Trump did lose the state by about 5 points. Remember, everybody, though, he did lose the state by 15 points in the year 2020. So even 6 does show that there has been some electoral movement. Chitterelli's been a decent candidate. But Crystal's exactly right about California. In a lot of ways, Crystal, I didn't realize California, that was the only thing on the ballot. That makes it probably the easiest vote in the world, right? Just come out to vote and say, no, we're not going to let Republicans try to prevail in the midterm. So right now, you know, looking at Polymarket, the chances of a Democratic sweep are some 91% right now, just to show everybody like where the odds kind of look at. So that's, it's not about the result right now, the absolute result. We're really looking at margins. And so for Zohran Mamdani, that's one of the things that we're really all going to be keeping an eye on. The turnout there has been extraordinary. If we want to dig into any of that a little bit, it looks like it's on pace right now to hit 2024 general election, which is insane, right? You know, in New York City for a mayoral election. I will say, you know, in terms of turnout, one of the things that we'll all be looking for is some of the demographic breakdowns later on in the day, that whether Zohran was able to transform the electorate, which currently does look like he was, in terms of overperformance in some of the earlier vote, 18 to 29-year-olds. I know, though, that there was significant activation in some of the older people, you know, potentially more Cuomo-friendly. I'm not saying Cuomo's going to win. I don't expect him to win tonight, as you said, barring some absolute catastrophic polling miss. But at the very least, like, we might be able to see what his performance combined with Silwa would look like if Zohran is not able to crack 50. So I do think that will be the big story. There's a huge difference between some 44, 45% and reaching like a 51, a 52. And currently, I think they're even looking at what I saw one projection of maybe even 55%, which would be insane. I mean, that is an mandate. That's mandate territory. And
the ability to transform the electorate is, you know, that's an astonishing feat. I think we have Dave Weigel standing by, Mac, if you could bring him in. Hey, Dave. Dave, of course, with Semaphore. Great to see you, sir.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you, man.
Of course. Mac, you want to throw up on the screen, my screen here? I don't think I have the capability to do it. That just has the Virginia governor results, and you can see what we've got in so far, 25%. of votes in, Spanberger at 56%, Winston Sears at roughly 44%. At least Decision Desk HQ has already called this race. Spanberger will be the next governor. Not that that's any kind of a surprise. What are you looking for, though, specifically in Virginia, since that's where polls have closed and we're getting numbers in? What are you seeing so far? What's interesting to you? What are you kind of watching?
Oh, I think like everyone else, I have moved on from the race for governor and am watching the Jones-Miyares race. This showed up in prediction markets, but if you talk to Democrats and Republicans in the last week, you heard a lot more whispering that Jones could pull it off. And if he does, lots of reasons why. I think one will be the story Audrey Fahlberg's National Review story broke during early voting, but with enough time for voters later on to decide that it wasn't that
to get
bad.
over it. Yeah.
Well, people get over everything with time. That's the time
Yeah.
heals all wounds or threats of wounds or whatever. And also, one of the theme of this year has been Democratic cynicism, in the sense that they force themselves to play nice and Republicans don't, and that's a little self-serving. But if Jones wins, I'm thinking of the many times I've seen bumper stickers that under Biden that said, "I'd take a mean tweet and $2 gas right now." And these were not tweets; these were texts. They were more than mean; they were murderous. But I see in these numbers a lot of Democrats saying, "Yeah, it seems right to me. I can put up with this what this guy said in order to vote."
I think
for
you're exactly
a
right,
Democrat."
Dave.
Yeah,
It does, just in my limited experience here in the Northern Virginia suburbs, I can report only one sign where somebody duct taped Jones's name off of the Spanberger Hashimi Jones sign. Everybody else is keeping them. Some even have explicit ones just about Jones actually there. And I do think, though, that what you're getting at is today is local and state elections. But by and large, the national factor here just cannot be overstated, to which a lot of the Democrats are turning out with an explicit vote against the Trump administration. Is that how you kind of see things, not just in Virginia, but broadly in all these races that we're looking at tonight?
Well, because Georgia too, Democrats are very optimistic about Georgia. They're turning out about the Trump administration, but and this is the most obvious point in the world, but bears repeating. This is going to be smaller than the 2024 electorate. Republicans are in a multi-year experiment to see if you can turn out MAGA without Trump, and they have struggled to do that in many ways. Now they're struggling to do it when Trump is not as popular as he was in November. Mm-hmm. It's also anecdotal. I mean, anecdotes are real. You talk to people, you see things. But it sounds whiny when Democrats say, hey, he said he'd focus on costs, and costs are up. Well, that's true. There were a lot of voters, and we talked to them, and a reporter who said, I took a chance on Trump because prices were lower and he was president. What then gets them to the polls for a person who's not Donald Trump, who's not explaining how they're going to lower prices, if that's their issue? Because Glenn Youngkin actually did a very good job of that in 2021. He had, I remember talking to Democrats who were furious at their party for not getting rid of a grocery tax, sales tax on groceries, leaving that issue for Youngkin, who ran on it, and Bacalov was a very unimaginative campaigner and didn't know what to do. And this year, Spanberger didn't really explain what she would do. She just said, I'm against the president's tariffs and layoffs. And Winsome Earl Sears' answers were, let's keep the Youngkin machine going, and the gender issue, which I don't know if you discussed already. In the exit poll, she has Winsome Earl Sears, most people agree with her on that quote-unquote transgender rights have gone too far. But a quarter of people who agree with that sentiment voted for Spanberger because they, again, said, well, it's
just
I think
a different
that's
time.
Probably heavily weighted with Black and Hispanic voters. But that just... I don't love that, but I voted for Trump, and he's taking care of that, and he's not taking care of prices.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
maybe
just
that's
very-
not my top priority,
Yeah, I was going to say, so, Dave, I'm here in Leesburg at the Winsome Sears, quote, victory party that is obviously no longer a victory party. It really never was expected to be a victory party. The vibes have been low here all night, but if Mac can put my screen up right now, I want to just talk about this Jay Jones for a moment. This is Real Clear's aggregation of the polling data in this race, basically over the course of the fall. When Audrey Fahlberg's National Review story with those Jones texts came out, it was October 3rd. So you can see Miyares takes a lead pretty healthily. But here on Election Day, basically tied. And another thing I wanted to highlight just from all of this is Sears never got a Trump endorsement. And if you look at this post that Trump put up, Virginia and New Jersey, remember this, a vote for a Republican means substantially lower energy prices. A vote for a Democrat, especially these two losers who are running, means a doubling, tripling, and even quadrupling of your energy costs. It will not be sustainable, and you will rue the day that you voted to destroy your life. Failing to vote tomorrow is the same as voting for a Democrat. Find your voting location, blah, blah, blah. So, Dave, I was thinking maybe you could speak a little bit more to this question of how to capture the MAGA coalition when Trump isn't on the ballot, because Glenn Youngkin was the great white hope of Republicans, and then they saw in Winsome Sears someone who was like a minority, a veteran, a woman, well-spoken, and it just never came together for them. Trump's instincts here seem to be because the kitchen table issues were off the table, so to speak. That was a horrible pun.
No, it's a...
We'll allow it.
Well, she had a troubled campaign, and Republicans were saying months ago, before the texts were known, or even gossiped about, that they were going to put all their investments in Miyares and try to have enough split tickets to win, because they didn't think she was a strong campaigner. She had a record. Democrats did a very good job exploiting her record just as a social conservative, who I think could have won in Virginia 20 years ago and can't now. And there was a moment in the debate which went the way that the Errol Sears team wanted. If you're talking to them around the debate, they wanted to use that debate to show that Spanberger was not fast on her feet, did not know how to respond to either the Jones question or the gender questions. And we're wrapping a lot into the gender questions. But Democrats thought they won that because Spanberger had made an issue out of Earl Sears being against gay marriage. She never changed her position on that. It's now very popular in Virginia, as it is most blue states. And there was a very bizarre exchange where Spanberger starts reciting from her ads. My opponent said that it was against gay marriage. My opponent said it was okay to fire somebody for sexual preference. And Earl Sears says, that's not discrimination. It literally is discrimination. That is talk to anyone. Firing somebody because their sexual preferences, identity is discrimination. So she never did anything to say, beyond campaigning with Glenn Youngkin, I'm a Glenn Youngkin candidate. And also, Youngkin ended his tenure pretty popular for the reason... Well, not getting into all the reasons. He became a governor who couldn't pass his priorities in the legislature, and that ends up being popular. But the economy was worse. The economy was worse today in Virginia than it was a year ago for all the reasons we know about, for Doge and other reasons. Running as the continuation of Glenn Youngkin, but more right-wing. Terrible.
It's just not going to work.
Brand. She could not carry that.
She wasn't a great candidate, right? There's no doubt about that. But I think it would have been next to impossible for a Republican to win in Virginia this year, simply because of the federal government cuts, how hard that has hit the state, how hard that has hit the economy. You know, if you're associated with Trump and the Republicans at all, and she never did anything really to distance herself from the Doge cuts and sort of like low-key supported them, it's going to be a disaster. I mean, Virginia is a state that's in a recession right now. So, if you are the party power at the federal level and you're the party in the power at the state level, Sagar and I have been saying for a while before even the candidates had been chosen for either party, this is going to be very difficult for Republicans. It's going to be impossible for Republicans. And it is worth saying that in terms of reading into, by the way, NBC has now also called it for Spanberger. It is worth saying that in terms of reading things into this race for the national mood, it's important to keep in mind that caveat that the federal government, the shutdown right now, all of the layoffs that have occurred through Doge, that has hit Virginia particularly hard. And so there is a unique dynamic here that is different from, other things that are happening nationally. I wanted to put up, if Matt, can you put up my screen here with the exit polls just to get a little bit of, what we've got here. This is the NBC News exit polls. So they've got, how do you feel about the way Donald Trump is handling his job as president in New Jersey? You've got only 43% approve. These are exit polls. So these are voters who went and voted today. This is a sample of them. 55% disapprove, 43% approve. In Virginia, similar numbers, 56% disapprove, 41% approve. Obviously in New York City, they overwhelmingly hate him. California, similar deal. How do voters see the Democratic and Republican parties? They say, both pretty negative, very grim national outlook. In New Jersey, you've only got 33% who say that they're satisfied or enthusiastic about the way things are going in the country today. The other 65% say they're angry and dissatisfied. Those are very similar numbers for Virginia So, Dave, what is your sense of like how heavily Trump weighs on all of these races, and how much the impact of his approval rating in these various states and how voters feel like his policies are impacting their lives directly? How much does that impact what we're going to see tonight in terms of the results?
Quite a lot, more than the last big. What was the last big election where Trump was sort of an issue? It was Wisconsin Supreme Court race in April, and Doge was still in existence, and Elon was still in the administration.
God, that feels like a long time ago.
Yeah, there was. It was,
like
but
so long ago.
There was a lot more optimism about the economy, and that has faded. The Democrats get to have elections in states tonight that depend less on manufacturing than data that benefit from imports, etc. Bad place to test Besantnomics, I guess. However, you're starting to see the separation from the White House is able to control news cycles very easily. It's able to change the subject to what it wants to talk about very easily. And Democrats were always, I was watching them campaign. It's like Democrats were an hour hand and Republicans were a second hand. Republicans were switching from issue, not switching panic, but jumping on every issue. Democrats, in a very rote way, would try to bring everything back to, well, costs are too high, and the president's responsible, and my opponent will just say whatever the president wants. Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey, she got some coverage at the end about why is she not pulling away with this race. Is she too obsessed with Trump? It was smart for her to be obsessed with Trump because it made her well positioned when Trump threatened the Gateway Tunnel funding to say, well, I'll fight that, and my opponent will not do that. And so this is early. I mean, the Jay Jones thing, I think, is already going to color. Mom Donahue's
by the way,
result will come in and say, but the Jay Jones is going to color things and emphasize how much voters are saying, I'm willing to put up with stuff I don't like because Trump is president and things are getting worse. These polls are correct. He has a much worse rate in the economy because we think the economy sucks.
Some outlets are calling the lieutenant governor race for the Democrats in Virginia as well at this point.
And the AP called it, Crystal. The AP just called it for Abigail Spanberger. So
I was going to add
did that.
Well, I was talking about the lieutenant governor race now. Some outlets are also calling that one.
Got it.
And I was actually going to add the one race that Republicans are most hopeful about is the Jay Jones race. And sources that I'm talking to right now are not feeling good even about that one. So that, I think, Dave, you're right, is going to be a big takeaway. I was also wondering, Dave, if you could speak a little bit to the similarities between Spanberger and Sherrill, because I think we can learn a bit about what establishment Democrats wanted to see in some of those blue states out of these candidates. In high-risk elections, they obviously wanted to take these governor commissions back. They have pretty similar backgrounds.
Yeah, they do. I was... I think on Twitter, where I'm sarcastic sometimes, making fun of how there was one profile written again and again of both Sherrill and Spanberger about how these two women who won together in 2018, one's running for governor of Virginia, but she's from New Jersey, and then vice versa. One was a CIA operative, and one was a veteran. They were the same story, and I talked to Democrats who work with veterans they were tired of hearing that story. But it was they had not immense political talent. Reporters who kind of went to cover them to see if they could be president one day usually came away thinking, well, maybe not. But Spanberger had defined herself pretty early on as not AOC. There was an effort, if you remember, in 2018 by a lot of less liberal Democrats to say, hey, it's kind of annoying how the media covers the squad like they're the only Democrats. I disagree with them on this and that and this. And she really upped that after the 2020 election, immediately saying the defund the police people cost us seats. Biden was running in 2021. Nobody elected Joe Biden to be FDR. Did she vote against her party very much? Not really, but she said, I'm not like them. Sherrill was different. Sherrill just won her seat, held it pretty easily, especially when it was redrawn. Not a super dynamic campaigner, but said, I am the moderate Democrat obsessed with the Gateway Tunnel. And again, that ended up being a great issue for her at the end of the race. But both of them, that you have to define. This is a thing a lot of Democrats who want the party to win and move to the center. Not that that's the same thing, but you know what I mean. Are saying is you can't just say, and I'm a centrist. You need to memorably say, I'm not like those people. You have to be like Trump when he said, pro-lifers want me to ban IVF. I'm going to make it free. That's really memorable. People heard that and said, I guess he's different than other Republicans. And we talk about anecdote. I met voters who voted for Trump because of that. And
Yep.
not just the promise, but I guess he's not run by those right-wing people I don't like. And
Right.
Spanberger did that better than Cheryl. Cheryl didn't do as much of that. Cheryl just never identified herself with the left of the party. And the fact that she voted for every Democratic bill, we mentioned gender, they both voted against the Protect Women's Sports Act and the... I'm forgetting the title of the bill that was basically the Florida legislation on parents, but I think Parental Bill of Rights. They both voted the quote-unquote wrong way, according to polls, but just Republicans didn't stick that, and they were very close to Trump, especially Jack Ciattarelli in New Jersey. We're going to see what the result is.
Yeah.
Changing from a 2021 more independent brand to 2025, I support Trump.
Trumpier.
I give him an A rating. That might have been a mistake.
It might have been.
Two big announcements. Two big announcements. Number one, New Jersey polls, I believe, have closed, so we should be getting some results there soon. And number two, Ryan Grimm has joined the stream from Zoran event. Ryan, welcome. Oh, but we don't hear him.
You're muted,
we can
Ryan.
only see him.
You're muted.
No
This
audio
is a
yet,
classic
Ryan.
Ryan situation.
Well, even when Ryan
All
is
right.
unmuted,
Griffin,
we don't have
there's
his audio.
Griffin.
So Griff, figure out
We
the
can't hear
audio.
you
Ryan
guys.
got a haircut.
Sorry. Yes.
Ryan got a haircut, so that's
You guys are still
well.
mute currently. While you guys figure it out,
They also wore their suits so the
Yes.
Tucker wouldn't bully them.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I'm just saying, it's a
No, neither
professional
was
event.
Zoran.
Yeah, exactly. They need to copy the candidate. So, Dave, switching to New Jersey because the polls just closed there, and we do have our eyes there. Crystal, you had those results just to maybe tie a bow on Virginia. The only race was what was it? Virginia Attorney General election winner, and Polymarket has it at some 97% right now for Jay Jones.
97% for Jay Jones. So I think that's
So it looks like a
wrap.
full-on sweep there, and the
Yeah.
last hope of the GOP in Virginia.
Well, and now the
Dash.
question is, what are the margins and what happens in the House of Delegates? So I was reading Dave Wasserman's analysis, of the number of seats. There's a number of seats that were won by Kamala Harris. Those are easy flips, and then there's a next tranche of seats that Trump had won by 0 to 5 points. Okay, are Democrats able to pick those up? That would indicate, okay, they're in decent shape for the midterms. And then there's another stretch set of seats that Trump won by, let's say, 5 to 8 points. And then that would be if they're able to win those sorts of seats, then that's looking really good for Democrats for the midterm election. So that will be the next thing to watch in Virginia, which in some ways will be the most sort of instructive of what the national sentiment is, at least as expressed through the Virginia electorate. Again, recognizing that Virginia is a little bit unique just because of how large the federal government looms here.
One thing, Dave, maybe to get your reaction, I saw you tweeting about this as well, is Loudoun County, where Jonathan Martin weighing in saying Ralph Northam's record for just under 9 points looks like it may get smashed tonight. Spanberger is up 29 in Loudoun County, which, correct me if I'm wrong, was Trumpier than we thought back in 2024, and it was one of the views where we're like, oh man, Kamala's in big trouble here if she's not leading significantly in Loudoun. Jonathan Martin saying it puts her on track for a double-digit statewide win. Obviously, we don't have that yet, but that would be significant. And just curious for your thoughts on, not a bellwether per se, but definitely something that we looked at previously in Virginia.
Well, Dave, I want to piggyback on that super quickly just to say that was also supposed to be literally it was referred to as the ground zero of the parents' rights revolution that was going to become a central plank of the new Republican coalition. That is what Glenn Youngkin, that was such a Youngkin battleground. That was the big thing. And if this is a total sweep in Loudoun, which is where I am right now, that feels very devastating for the people who saw Wilson Sears as the successor to Youngkinism, as a successor to Trumpism.
Yeah, one thing I'd add to that is, before I return to Loudoun Point, Prince William County, Elizabeth Guzman is running a comeback bid against Ian Lovejoy for delegate. She was a delegate, ran for state senate, lost running for her old seat. And she was the author of one of those bills that was basically, I'm going to mischaracterize, but I'll characterize the way campaign ads characterize it, which was it could punish parents if they don't recognize their kid's gender identity. That was center of the Republican campaign. Ian Lovejoy, the incumbent, just hammered her on that. It had been an issue for 3 years. I look at it now, she's winning by 11 points, might be 12 points. And so that is, and I was talking to people on both sides of this issue before this, and if you're a Republican and think this is a winning issue, you think Democrats are going to get overly confident that the trans issue is no longer a winner. If you're a Democrat, yes, you're confident. This is the Republicans can't just beat you by running on that issue. Yep. But yeah, the point I was making about Loudon was that J Mart's right. Spanberger's winning by an incredible landslide there. But for the Jones race, Kamala, the memory is correct. When Loudon came in and she was only winning it by 17 points, Democrats realized they had a problem. Jones is winning it by 19 points. So Jones is doing a little bit better than Kamala Harris when she won the state in that county. I think that's if you're watching this on Polymarket and you bought, well, you've already bought. You probably weren't listening to me, but that's another reason to buy. Yeah.
I want to jump to the New Jersey results here that we're getting in, and I was just taking a look at some of the coverage on the cable news networks, and they're digging into these different counties that are starting to come in, and thus far it looks like Mikey Sherrill is outperforming both Kamala Harris and the current Democratic governor. So it's none of these counties have completely recorded their results. So that's an important caveat that you don't know what precincts have come in, blah, blah, blah. But in all the counties that they've checked so far, it looks like she's outpacing, again, both Kamala Harris and the current governor, Phil Murphy.
Yes, and I wouldn't say that's surprising. So that race was haunted by the past. Phil Murphy won in 2021 much more narrowly than the polling suggested. And so when Sherrill would be up 6 points, Democrats saw that and imagined a tie. Everybody did. And I saw some reporting about Democrats being disappointed in her. To sum it up, Sherrill was not as nimble a campaigner as Spanberger, and had a couple interviews in the primary, which is a very crowded primary, where she just kind of got tongue-tied and didn't have a good answer. Like, most famously, one with Charlemagne the God, where she couldn't explain how her family made a lot of money while she was in Congress, and then one with Marsha Kramer, a legendary New York reporter, where she asked, what one piece of legislation we want to pass for New Jersey? And Sherrill just kind of froze up for 10 seconds. And it looked really bad. And those were just every day. If you turn on TV, you're watching those ads. But that was it. She did not really run an accident-prone campaign. She was just like a above the Mendoza line candidate with a really good biography running against what Trump was doing to the state. And there was no evidence that Chitterelli was surging. There was evidence that he was holding on to some of Trump's it's not past 10 to me, he could still win. Evidence that he was holding on to some of Trump's non-white gains. But Sherrill was just killing it in the suburbs, and the early vote and the mail vote was doing better than Murphy was doing. So going into today with the gateway story in everybody's mind, with the shutdown happening, with SNAP benefits being canceled over the weekend, or halted, I should say. That's one theme here. Like, the last week of campaigning was very good for Democrats.
That's true.
In part because of what Trump was doing.
Yeah.
Right. Emily, you just flagged some results for us out of Georgia. So Georgia had a couple of statewide races for public service commissioner, and both Democratic challengers were victorious over GOP incumbents. This is from Daniel, is his Twitter handle, Daniel Nashanian of Bolts Magazine. An essential follow if you're an election nerd like we are. In any case, he says, if confirmed, this would be a really huge win for Georgia Dems. It'd be Dems' first statewide win in any non-federal race since 2006. And again, it's one of those just kind of, barometers of the national mood and of, who shows up also in these off-year elections. I think that's an important point, too, is the Democratic coalition skews much more towards those like rock solid, reliable voters than it used to.
Dave, do we have you?
Yeah, Dave. I don't know if
okay.
I don't know if you've been following that. It hasn't been really on anybody's radar because it's so it's
random.
Oh no, I just had a little pause.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, that's another. I mean, I don't have much else to add. Sorry for losing one beat of the question. But yeah, that's more of a. Both sides could tell that Democrats just wanted to vote in something. This has been happening in down ballot elections all year. Oh, there's a state Senate special. I just got out of the No Kings rally. I'm going to go vote in this. That was already happening in Georgia. That is a significant win. Republicans were not able to convince their voters, if you love Trump, vote for the Public Service Commission. Yeah, it's becoming a theme as we talk about this. Like, Democrats having a base that loves voting anytime they can. That big help for them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good coalition to have, but it is one that.
But that was different than the 2024 coalition, where
Right.
analysis since has said that actually if more voters turned out, the race would have skewed further right.
Yeah, well,
That's not
that's kind of my
clearly
point.
for
Is that
Republicans.
lower turnout elections are ones where it's more reliable, off year. A lot of people don't necessarily care, but you have more highly educated suburban liberals. Those are people who follow the news very religiously, probably the most activated about what's happening right now. I mean, I don't want to speak entirely. I could be wrong, right? Like it could be that the coalition itself looks much more different. It could be even non-traditional voters who also are coming out for Democrat who are pissed off, let's say, about the Trump administration. I could absolutely see that happening.
I think it's important to say that Trump coalition of low propensity voters, no other Republican has really been able to
Ever.
cobble together. So, that is a
I
very
just think
Trump
that's a-
specific phenomenon. And we've also seen, I mean, his numbers that he had with young people, oh my God, falling off a cliff, numbers with Latinos falling off a cliff. So the types of voters that showed up to support Trump in 2024 are no longer necessarily, they're not Republicans necessarily, and they're not, necessarily excited to vote in an off-year election for Republicans either. One note I have here I was mentioning the Virginia House of Delegates. HD 30, which is part of Loudoun County, part of Fauquier County. So those are those exurbs which have been, really kind of turned into the new bellwethers. It looks like a Democratic flip. This was a Trump +1 district. And you've got the Democrat up by roughly 3 points at this point with 90% of the vote in. So that's looking like a flip for the Democrats in a Trump +1 district.
Wow, that's big. And so in terms of what we're looking at, and we continue to, do we have any updates on New Jersey? It still looks like about 17%. But yeah, if I'm looking at, oh, wow. So the poly market odds have moved significantly. It's now 98% for Mikey Sherrill. So, that means anything, it does look like the Democratic sweep was there. So I guess everyone, 92% now Democratic sweep odds increasing on poly market, and they were already significant. I mean, in terms of the movement, just generally, I guess the last question is going to be on that margin, and also insignificantly, like in Virginia governor. So I'm just checking right now to see where it is. It's about 43% of the vote in, and yeah, she's leading by about 11 points. Obviously, not all votes in. Some of the more rural areas still need to report. In New Jersey governor, you have a significant lead, but you only have about 17% of the vote that has been reported. So it's one of those where I think we're in margin watch a little bit. And I mean, Dave, just generally, like in terms of the national, or not, in terms of any national takeaways, we had an interesting point that was made on our show, maybe that you could react to, is that Virginia and New Jersey maybe not be as nationally representative as they once were. They used to be highly predictive, I think he said, in the last 90 years, Harry Enton, of where the midterms went for the Democratic Party. Obviously, we have all the gerrymandering stuff that's happening right now, but also those two states may not just be the bellwethers because of, significant movements in terms of the coalition and just generally where things move. I'm curious for your reaction.
Yeah, I would have a tempered reaction to Democrats saying we solved all of our problems, but they are doing better than they thought they would even 2 weeks ago. I don't know. Democrats didn't seem to be misleading me based on the numbers. They never said we're going to win these races by a landslide. Republicans are cooked. They had the advantage, the demographic advantage. The question was what was going to happen to the Trump coalition. So if the first races of the year were in Ohio, would we be seeing the same thing?
Right.
Would they be winning? I'm not sure, but suburbs turning out for them, Democratic voters not caring if their nominees make a mistake or have a scandal or text that somebody should die.
We call that
has
dark
played out
woke,
elsewhere. I mean,
Dave.
I covered these Iowa races that Democrats flipped, these state Senate races, and they had good candidates against bad Republican candidates. But in both cases, just every suburbanite liberal voted, and then MAGA voters didn't come back, and nothing seemed to compel them back.
Yep.
All right, Dave. Anything else? Anything big you're looking at before we let you go? I know you got lots of other things to do this evening, and we appreciate your time very much.
Yes, thank you.
Oh no, thanks. You're doing a great job with this. The theme so
Appreciate
far
the
is
support.
going to be Dems doing very well. So I have to go write that probably. Thanks for having me.
Go workshop
Oh,
that.
by the way, Dave, please stay on the data center story, man. We loved your coverage.
Yes.
The audience loved it too. Anything you write on the subject, let us know.
Yes, send us anything that you have on that, and we love to have you, back on anything you write, anything you're seeing there. Because I live in one of these areas in King George County where they're trying to put 2 different data centers here, and it's a very hot and undercovered issue. It's totally cross-partisan, so we're really quite we're quite interested in the topic.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'd say watch in Virginia, watch the 30th District in the data center story that you're very nicely complimenting. I wrote about how both the Republican incumbent and the Democratic challenger were against data centers, and the Democrat said he's not doing enough to stop them. Right now, the Democrat is winning that race. So thanks for mentioning that. That will be a theme. That's good. That people are going to pay more attention after this year.
I completely agree. All right, Dave. Thank you. Always great to see you.
Good to see you, man.
Same to you. Bye.
Yeah, of course. Hey, Mac, if you can throw my screen back up on, and share that. So a couple others that we're getting in here. These are some of the, maybe a little bit off the beaten track, but still important results. Pennsylvania, you've got 3 Supreme Court seats up. These are against statewide races. And Democrats are hoping to retain these 3 Supreme Court justices so they can keep their 5-2 majority. Now, it's early days. We've got 7 and 8% of the vote in. I'm not sure why it's different. That's kind of weird. But anyway, 7 to 8% of the vote in for all 3 of them. But so far, overwhelmingly, Democrats getting their way there. And then I was also taking a look at Maine. You have these 2 ballot propositions that I was mentioning Graham Plattner's campaign has been organizing around. So this one in particular was a big focus for them. Question 1, new voting restrictions require photo IDs for in-person voting, tighten rules on absentee voting and ballot drop box use, among other changes. This is the one Leonard Leo was associated with. So far, yes, is prevailing. So, but again, you got 1%,
like
less than 1% of votes in. So very early there, but we'll be keeping our eye on that one. This is a red flag law effectively. And on this one, the progressive position, the one that the, Plattner and others are backing, is the yes position. Establish a process for people to request extreme risk protection orders. That one underwater. Again, we're talking about a grand total of 1,500 votes in at this point. So definitely too early to be able to
That's
say
an
what's
interesting
going on
one
there.
in the state of Maine, because
it is for
Maine's
sure
a much more pro-gun state in particular.
Rural
and
character.
Graham Plattner explained pretty much why that's the case on our show last Friday. But I actually think those election measures are interesting from the purpose of trying to understand the makeup of the electorate and the turnout patterns, because those aren't necessarily coded. I mean, I know that Dems have been trying to code them as right wing, but if you're a normie voter, you probably attach voter ID with right wing, all that. But voter ID polls pretty well. And so I'm just curious about those election results as they will compare with what we see from patterns in Virginia and New Jersey, where Dems seem very obviously right now to be energized.
Yeah, that's a good point, Emily. I mean, on voter ID, like you said, it usually polls quite well. Probably part of the reason that they put it together with the absentee ballot thing, just to try to smush those together. Again, I'm not an expert in Maine election absentee balloting, so I'm not gonna dig into that. I'll let Leonard Leo slug that one out for himself and for the Susan Collins campaign. I guess the real question, so far is wow. 11 points. Spanberger is still holding as of right now. Oh, we have our guys. They're ready.
We're the guys.
Yay, let's go.
The boys are here.
We're not ready.
We can hear them. We can see them. What's
How do
the
we
vibe
sound?
like?
How are we coming in?
Vibe check?
You guys sound great.
We sound great, Ryan.
It sounds good. Yep, sounds good.
The vibe check among, for what the people watching actually care about, the vibe check among they're like trying not to get themselves too hyped up and jinx anything, but they're talking about significant mandate level.
They're measuring the
victory.
What would be significant mandate level kind of victory? What is their marker for that? Is it 50%? 55%?
Anything over 50, but they're looking at 55%.
I'm saying 56. I'm saying 56 tonight. That's my number.
But for a mandate, you're looking at a majority, at minimum a majority of the city. And a majority of the city with the biggest turnout in election history. And you go to the city council and you say, look, Now here's what we're curious about. Can you hear that? Like how loud?
Yeah.
How loud is that?
It's
Griffin,
okay,
your
we
mic
still
is a
hear
little
you.
bit hot.
Too hot? Okay.
But we still hear you guys even with the music. Go ahead.
Streaming wise, we're still figuring out the logistics here. This is going to be a bit of a challenge. They're set up for traditional media. Interestingly, like so you've got a bunch of spots back here where you've got room for like one reporter to do stand up back to Tokyo or wherever they are, but not the more casual and interesting kind of coverage that we're trying to do. Plus, they keep blasting random music over here for some reason.
Right. Yeah,
The vibe is get off my lawn.
they've already begun their war on the independent press that helped
they
them
have
get
already.
elected. They
Oh,
already are rolling
they
the red
forget us.
carpet out for the New York City
Yeah.
media. How times have changed over there.
I want
Ryan,
to do a
can
quick comparison of the soundtracks just from here, Winston Earl Sears Quote Victory Party in Leesburg, Virginia, and out there in Manhattan. I don't know what borough you guys are in, but you guys
Brooklyn.
are blasting. Okay, you're in
course.
Brooklyn. You're blasting Brooklyn music. I've been caught in a Motown trap with this lukewarm buffet behind me, and all of the people who braved the Winston Sears Victory Party. She was down about 10 points.
Is that
in
her
RCP
behind you?
Average.
No.
It's not her behind me,
No.
but seriously, I think it's you guys seem poised to actually have quite a bit of fun tonight.
Ryan Griffin, I just have one ask. If you do smell weed, just let us know. Just let the stream know. I'm just curious.
You know what? I
Yeah.
walked through Brooklyn and didn't even smell any weed. I think
You're
the
lying.
The city
You're
is
lying.
cleaning itself up.
Sharia. They're
You-
preparing for the
you-
Sharia law. That's
Ryan,
what that
you
is.
are a liar.
Everybody
Okay.
was wearing a suit.
Yeah.
They're worried about the impending Sharia law. So that's what's
hey,
going
listen,
on
I
there.
mean, I wouldn't mind a little bit of Sharia law in New York City. They can
You
clip
remember
that if
when
they want to.
MTG
Yeah.
posted that meme of the Statue of Liberty in a full
Yes, in a
burqa?
burqa.
Someone should actually
Yeah.
post the Statue of Liberty in a full suit. That's the real
Yes, that's
Sauron
the-
Sharia. That's
Well, Sagar
By the way,
should post that
you-
actually.
Also,
I
do you
can
know
post
the
it.
back?
Sure.
You know
Make it
the
on
back?
Grok.
Somebody
it on
make-
Grok.
Backstory? Do you know the backstory of why he wears suits all the time now?
I don't.
actually-
Go ahead.
It goes back to the interview that he did with me and Emily back in November or whenever that was, and he
He
wore
looked like
it's like
Che
leather bomber
Guevara.
jacket. Yeah, it looked like he was like a Weather Underground guy on the run, and
He
his-
was like Symbionese Liberation Army. That's what we said at the time.
and his press crew was like, "Oh my God, New York Post is gonna like screen grab this, and this is gonna be the photo that is going to be used for every." And they never screen grabbed it.
Yeah.
They missed their shot.
Well, now they need to.
What are you guys doing? And so
Well, they couldn't
after
because he
that,
was saying
wore a
nice things
suit
about
every
Trump
single
voters in
time.
that interview.
You know, I went down a rabbit hole of sewer socialists today, and these were some very fine dressed men. All right. I just
Yes.
want to put that out there.
Oh,
I
huge
went
fan
down
of
a-
the sewer socialists.
I went down a real rabbit hole of some of the sewer socialists of Milwaukee, and these gentlemen were exquisitely dressed. So let
Yes,
that just be a
because-
lesson for the left.
because it's not about like LARPing as a working class person. It's trying to take the working class into material privilege. Like that's
Yes.
the whole point. The point is not to be working class. The point is to work your way out of it
To
by
march
organizing and
through
getting
the
power.
institutions. Is that what
As
you were
well
saying?
as-
You would
well,
march.
no, as
There
Samuel,
it is.
as
There
Samuel
we
Tompkins-
go.
Yeah.
Look at
as
that.
Tompkins
Look
put
how
it,
beautiful
it's,
she is. All right.
That's
Now we're just
scary.
gonna
Oh my
cover
God.
up that dumbass poem, and then we can
I
really.
hate
Wait,
it
but
so much.
this brings an entire different question of gender and gender identity into the
This
equation
is
that
it
we
is
weren't
very
prepared to
yeah,
talk
that's
about.
true. That's true. Yeah, that is true.
This is the
We're
New York that I
introducing
believe
some
in.
gender ambiguity here that I might be able to get behind.
Can we
Ryan-
talk margin? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
was going to
Yeah,
ask
for the
something similar.
Jets.
So Ryan, I had asked you what do they see as a mandate? Certainly anything over 50%. They're starting to smell a 55 or a 56%. First of all, what are they seeing in the tea leaves that's making them so excited? Second of all, why does it matter? Like a win is a win. What does it matter, the margin and the strength of the mandate coming into this administration?
Ryan,
we
you're
don't hear
muted.
you. You're muted.
Ryan. We're not sure on whose end that is. Sorry.
It's on their end. It
Oh,
just
okay.
says
Yeah. I think
like you
Griffin's
guys
telling
have it
us.
clicked.
Griffin's telling us to talk, so it's
Mac,
okay.
all right,
Yeah.
well,
All
fine. I can answer my own question. So basically, I mean, the youth turnout appears to be astronomical. And, every day during early voting got younger and younger. Turnout today has been phenomenal. Turnout in particular in Brooklyn has been really phenomenal. Like the places that Zoran is the strongest have been turning out to vote in insane numbers. So that's why they're looking at this and going, oh, something big is happening here. That's number one. Number two, why does it matter? Well, he's going to have to fight with Kathy Hochul, with Albany, to be able to get his, policies enacted. He's going to have to fight with the city council. He's going to have to, fight with a bunch of these like developers. And there's going to be all sorts of people that he is going to have to work with and cajole in order to deliver on the promises that he has made to the city. And so if you have this large mandate coming in and a mass grassroots movement behind you, then you've got Kathy Hochul looking over her shoulder at her left flank, wondering what is going to be coming for her if she stands in Zoran's way and he decides to back her primary challenger, for example. So those are the sort of dynamics that are really important, where they're not just looking for a win here. They want to send a message saying, hey, we're the ones with the movement behind us. We're the ones with the political power. You have to play on our turf now, and we are going to be the ones calling the shots.
Yeah, that was a key kind of thing that you and I were talking about today, Crystal. It's about his ability to try and shape the New York City electorate. And I actually spent some time, that's what I was talking about, the sewer socialists. I was going back, reading about some of their original theories of power. And one of the things I think that the margin is really important for is also combining the level of seriousness with through which the opposition can fight. So just, again, to kind of take it back. And so what I was spending some of my time on is, after these sewer socialists came into power, what they really understood from the immediate get-go is they're like, look, there's been all this propaganda, all this stuff that's against us. We have to make shit work immediately. And to do that, one of the things that they focused on was the absolute like basics, nitty-gritty of governance. And one of the things that, highlighted that I kind of talked about today, part of why I think that Zoran is really, going to struggle, is because of the way that New York City is currently structured. It's Byzantine structures and committee systems, and, the state, the fact that he has no statutory authority to raise taxes, etc. But the thing that you can fall back on, especially in the immediate term, is because he's going to bask not only in victory, but you have to hit the ground running as soon as you take that mansion. And when you take that mansion, what you want to have to do and try to replicate some of the original success is to kind of sweep through and make sure that people are very, very clear, I think, in terms of like your ability to say, I have a democratic, like absolute mandate. And so I do think it's really important there for Zoran to try and to do that. And what I also think in terms of the margin is like looking at where things are right now. Again, I'm just going off Polymarket, and I'm not exactly sure where things are, but the modal outcome seems to be about a 10 to 20% margin of victory. We're not exactly sure, exactly where that would fall in the 50%, but I have to mention that there is a 28% chance that they have right now of a 20 or 30%, which would definitely put them very comfortably ahead. And I do think that that's something that we all, we want to keep an eye on. It also has major ramifications, Crystal, you can talk about for Chuck Schumer, for right? Like his decision, he's got his Schumer potential facelift, which maybe it's not a facelift, but
Schumer would not say who he voted for today.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to think about that.
Right.
This is first of all, he's a senator, Democratic senator from New York. That's number one. Number two, he's the leader of the Democrats in the Senate. And this is a guy who, all of these establishment Democrats, up until this moment, it was vote blue no matter who. Now you've got Zoran having won the primary, the Democratic nominee by 13 points, and he can't decide whether he's going to be behind the Democratic Party nominee or the resigned and disgraced governor who is endorsed by Donald Trump. And you can't tell us you can't tell us who you voted for. I mean, just insane stuff. And the Democratic base already hates this man, already hates Chuck Schumer. They already side with Zoran over him, not to mention Hakeem Jeffries and the way he played this was so disgusting too. He did come in finally at the end, realize he's got to also look over his shoulder at, potentially Zoran backing a primary challenger to him as well. So you've already got Zoran in a position to flex a lot of a political muscle here, and has truly exposed some of the hypocrisy and lack of principle and character among key Democratic leaders. Like, I think that cat is already out of the bag at this point.
It's kind of interesting.
I just want to say, this is also how John Boehner lost his job. Just remember, this is exactly how John Boehner lost his job. And so Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer were trying to navigate this in a way Baby Schumer is ready to step down. Ryan may have intel on that, but it's a disaster for them with what's coming.
I think Griffin's mic is hot.
Guys,
He wants to weigh in.
we're bringing Mike back in. I'm not trying to weigh in. I just want to say, are we live again? Are the mics
Yeah,
hot?
we're live.
Yep,
Yeah,
you're good.
hot. Yeah, you're good.
Really,
And your
really
audio
quick,
is
I
good,
wanted
too.
to, Matt, can you throw my screen because this is just interesting on the Jay Jones thing that I wanted to show you guys. This is from the CNN exits.
Can you blow it up, Crystal? Can you just click on the image so
Yeah.
I can't see?
There
it.
we go.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay, so they asked about the Jay Jones text, and 45% said it was disqualifying.
Holy smokes.
Of
Wow.
that number, 9% still voted for him. Okay. Then you had 26% who said it was concerning. 83% of the people who said it's concerning still voted for Jay Jones. And then of the not a concerned people, 90% voted for him. And then the haven't heard enough, 66% voted for him. But it's pretty wild to say they're disqualifying and then being like, yeah, but I voted for him.
This is the Trump thing. I mean, this is Trump 2016. I don't like how he, I don't like how he says
It's lesser
it.
of two evil politics.
Yeah, exactly. It's lesser of two
That's
evils.
it.
Look,
Yeah.
I never
And-
doubted for a second that this dude was going to lose. Like, I was like, there's no world where Democrats are going to be watching the shit on their TV screens and getting upset about it and saying, how can, I mean, I even feel this way when somebody's like concern trolling over rhetoric. I'm like, guys, Trump is president, okay? Like, it's over. Like,
Yeah.
all of the norms trolling, like, it's
And
all bullshit.
Democrats have
Right.
finally caught up to that.
And they
now.
should, because you know why? Because it's all weapon. Look at the Cheney thing today. Crystal, you and I, we held our tongue. I think enough time has passed. Maybe we can talk about it. But like part of the thing is like, look at all of these Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris and Bill Clinton and all these people eulogizing Dick Cheney. It's like, you don't
Disgusting.
actually have to do that. Okay. Like
Disgusting.
Barack Obama is silent today. And I couldn't be happier because for right now, like every single politician needs to just do away with this like norms worshiping stuff. It's like, no, it's about winning. And that's actually what it's about. Power and elections
Should we,
have consequences, period.
Should
Go
we
ahead.
play my man Graham's response to Dick
Sure,
Cheney's
yeah. I think
death?
Ryan wanted to. I will say, you guys know I'm skeptical of Graham, but I'm starting to believe, man. I'm starting to believe as a result. This video just got me. This video got me. Let's
All
play
right,
it.
let me go ahead and play it here.
Graham Plattner here. Usually, when a former vice president passes, we all take some time to mourn. As a veteran of the Iraq War, I'm going to say, no, not this time. Over the next couple days, I'm sure there are going to be thousands of think pieces written about his legacy, but the only legacy that we have to remember is that he wasted thousands of young American lives, hundreds of thousands of Iraqi lives, and trillions of dollars for absolutely nothing. If we take anything away from this, it should be that we need to build a politics that keeps the politicians like Susan Collins, who support illegal foreign wars like the one in Iraq, accountable and get them out of office.
There you go.
I mean, it's compelling. And you know why that's important too? That's a Trump 2016 moment. One of the most important parts of the 2016 campaign was when Jeb and Rubio were doing their Iraq war bullshit, and Trump was like, no, this was a disaster. Like, he looked at Jeb in his face, and Jeb kept being like, my brother kept us safe. He's like, no, he didn't. He's like, your brother was a disaster. And being able to just, like, break the taboo on that stuff is so vital and so important. So yes, I do think. I mean, I'll tell you, I'm out on Gavin because he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, condolences to the Cheneys." I was like, "All right, I was wrong, man. This guy
Gavin.
He's got nothing."
Yeah. Well, between that and his APAC answer, where it's like, very interesting that you're asking me that question. That's so interesting.
I thought he was a real talent. I don't get it. Like, who told you to? Yes, I mean, come on. He's the governor of the most populous state. Like, let's be real. You know, the energy fighting against Trump. He's got the look. He's got everything. The social media. But eulogizing Cheney, I was just like, all right. Like, I don't even know what we're doing here. It's like some Liz Cheney fantasy.
Let me get Ryan in here. What have you thought about the Cheney eulogizing Graham Plattner, any of the above?
On Graham Plattner, like I'm glad he came through. Like that's what we need. Like that's the whole point. Like that's why people who were defending him were defending him, because they see him as somebody who is willing to say the things that everybody is thinking. To Sagar's point, like yes, like I prefer my dead vice presidents who weren't war criminals, and then, like the whole party gas. Like, no, that's what everybody is feeling. On some of the eulogies, if you didn't read the New York Times obituary, and I was told by some reporters there that they were actually scrambling because I think they, like me, thought that this guy was going to live to be like 196 years old. And so they didn't even have an obit together, and so they slapped together the most like propagandistic, like glowing profile
it was
of Dick Cheney as a champion of democracy that loved democracy at home and abroad, and loved it. Maybe he loved it abroad a little bit too much, and sometimes that can hurt people. But it was cloying. It was disgusting.
It's why the world needs haters. Like we need haters in this world.
The only crime was loving the people of Afghanistan and Iraq too much.
He loved them so much. And I don't know, man. Just watching it, I was so repulsed. I saw that too. You know, Jonathan Martin. He's like a major political reporter. I even cited him earlier. He was like, "I'll say what you will." He loved Jonathan Karl from ABC News, who just read a book. He's like, "Say what you will." He loved democracy. I'm like, no, he didn't actually. And it's just like, no, like, hey, why do we even have to say this shit? Saying nothing is better than it all. So I don't know.
Dick Cheney, who, and you guys will enjoy the reference, but the guy who organized the Brooks Brothers riot,
right? I was just gonna say, who like actually successfully stole an election. That's the guy who loves democracy.
At least one.
And by the way, exactly. And by the way, you know, a lot of the Trump abuses of executive power and just basically making himself king, like you can tie that right back to the abuses of power from the Bush-Cheney administration with this man who's the, most powerful vice president we probably ever had. So, for all these people, this is what also drives me crazy is like, so many people get exposed for how hollow their opposition really is, whether it's their opposition to Bush and Cheney or their Trump opposition. I mean, look at Andrew Cuomo cozying up to Donald Trump. Remember 5 seconds ago, he was his biggest adversary during COVID. And now here he is teaming up with him. Like, for so many of these, and this I think is really repulsive to the American people. For so many of these Democratic Party elites, like legacy Democratic Party leadership elites, they don't really believe in anything. They really do feel like we're all in the same club together. And so the second it becomes politically expedient for them to be on Trump's team, look at Andrew Cuomo, right alongside Trump, who is supposedly his biggest enemy and adversary. It's disgusting.
And the only edit I'd make to that is they to your point, they do believe in something. Then they believe in that club. And
that's right. Yeah, no, that's right.
The moment that Cuomo is threatened with being removed from that club, he's willing to shed all pretense and say, you know what, actually, Donald Trump loves New York. I love New York. We can work together. Like, what was all of this stuff that we were talking about for so long?
Well, and to embrace the threat right? I mean, Donald Trump is acting like a mob boss. Like, nice city you got there. Pity if you vote for the wrong guy, and I'm gonna have to, fuck you up.
Here. Yeah.
Right. And
Right, he
Cuomo
just did this with Argentina.
backing that tactic, threatening his own like would-be voters. And it's just it's insane to me. It's truly loathsome. It's truly loathsome. I don't care what you think about his politics or Jordan's, but like that is a loathsome, unacceptable thing to do.
Yeah.
You could also tell that the I know it's a little hot earlier. Mac, how am I doing? Is it a little bit better, guys?
You're good. Yeah, you're good.
We're
Sounds
live,
good.
Yeah. You could also tell that the Trump administration was really trying to not endorse Cuomo because they kind of like didn't want to like give a thumbs up to a Democrat, and they knew it might help Mamdani. But it seemed like last night Trump just couldn't help himself and fired off those Truth Socials about if you're Jewish, you hate yourself if you vote for Mamdani, all that stuff. It seemed like that he just couldn't help himself right there at the finish line.
Right, because
guys, I do want to track that tonight. We need to get Jewish vote for Mamdani. I want that stat. I'd be willing to bet that the majority under the age of 30.
I've got a different identity politics stat for you, which is that thus far, according to the exit polls, only 9% of black voters voted for Winsome Earl Sears, who is herself a black woman, would be the first black woman governor of the state of Virginia, etc. So, voters
breaking
don't
barriers.
Just vote their identity.
And I do just, it's also worth
Trump the better. Yeah.
It's worth reminding everyone that when Glenn Youngkin won in 2020, what was it, 2021, the Republican Party was constantly having Winsome Earl Sears at the events. They were constantly pointing to Winsome Earl Sears as the future of the Republican Party, the MAGA without Trump, somebody who could keep the appeal of Trumpism and actually broaden the base. So go speak to black voters, go speak to female voters as a veteran, as somebody who was hardcore, take the culture, leaning into the culture war. And here it is, 2025, just also crashing with Hispanics where Trump made inroads. I just saw this post from Split Ticket, the guy at Split Ticket. So plurality Hispanic Manassas was emblematic of Dems' problems. Mac, you can put this up on the screen. In Nova in 2024 when it swung 9 points right. Now Spanberger is blowing past Biden's margin. Think about that with the candidate that the Republican Party saw as its future with minority voters.
Let me add a little bit to that, just on the culture war point, because this is something that Weigel has been tracking really closely. The Republicans really went all in on the trans issues in this election, and not just at the top of the ticket. So he says in another Virginia seat to watch, this is a House of Delegates seat, Ian Lovejoy, the Republican, versus Elizabeth Guzman, the Democrat. Guzman, the Democrat, authored pro-trans legislation in 2022 that ours characterized as punishing parents if they didn't accept the kid's gender identity. Center of the Republicans adds Guzman, the Democrat, right now is up 13 points. Yeah. And that's a district, that's a Prince William County district, which is another one of these like exurban districts south of the Beltway in Northern Virginia, exurban Northern Virginia. So interesting there too, that the bet on we can just do the culture war and that'll be enough does not seem to be paying off.
Yeah, I mean, you pointed that stat earlier, which said that even though the voters were like, yeah, I agree that it's gone too far. I mean, look, Richard Hanania said this earlier, I remember, and he goes, it feels indecent to care about wokeness right now. Even I kind of agree with that. Okay, as somebody who's like, even I am like, yeah, like, is right. Especially right now. Because, look, these are actual existential questions about we're solving the actual existential questions about the country right now. Like right now, for the Democrats, it's about executive power. It's about Trump. It's about immigration. For a lot of Republicans, it was the same way in 2024. Honestly, even in 2016, that's a huge number of the evangelicals, for example, who didn't like Trump, who all voted for him. Like for them, pro-life was literally an existential issue, and they're willing to look past almost anything, even a lot of stuff that they disagree with. And so I do think that that's always very instructive. And honestly, it does really vindicate some of the it vindicates a lot of the people in 2024 who warned the Kamala campaign that you are not going to be able to just coast off of Roe versus Wade. into the White House. Because it worked in 2022, and okay, that's fine. It's cool. Like it definitely was something. But when things feel truly existential, stuff like that, it's almost, Emily, you can back me up here. What is it? 20-30% of the people who voted for Trump were pro-choice. It might actually be higher because it was roughly around 30% in 2016.
One quick update, guys. Decision Desk HQ has called the New Jersey governor's race for Mikey Sherrill, so that one looks like it's done and dusted too. Just a question of the margin at this point.
I was going to say, actually, that's a good segue to toss this to Brian and Griffin, because just adding to what Sagar said, actually, that is, like on the Jay Jones race, Republicans realize they can't just post on this culture war. I talked to the executive director of the Republican Attorneys General Association earlier today, and he was telling me this is where decency is on the ballot, character is on the ballot. This is a defining moment. And that was their messaging heading into Election Day. But people are voting on healthcare. People are voting on healthcare. They're voting on jobs in Virginia, federal government jobs in Virginia. And I actually think an important point as we digest the results, Democrats learned from previous midterm cycles that they need to, and I think some of it comes from Zoran Mandani.
You're going to get it. What is this, Fox News?
Come on.
I don't know that
Why
I've
do people
ever
have trouble saying his name?
It's easy. Yeah.
In my opinion,
it is
my
easy.
personal opinion, Jashinsky is actually a lot harder to say than
100%. Mamdani's even phonetic.
I can't fucking say it.
I would always get it. My hard one was the Kamala. Did you ever get Kamala versus Kamala? That was my hard one. That was the one I never got. Right.
Actually, I did.
Really?
I also, by the way, I really struggled with Buttigieg in the beginning. I don't know if you remember that,
Yep.
Crystal. Back in 2018, I
I
was
do
always like,
remember
"But
that,
what
yeah.
a Jed." It was like, "But a Juge." I think they called him But a Juge at one point.
Buddha and Judge, and then you got
No, because they
Buddha.
I was gonna say
Like
they
red.
had that sign which was like boot edge, and that's when
Edge.
it's finally
Buddha.
been.
That one
hammered
could
out.
confuse me more.
I wanted to toss it to you guys for that question about the kind of culture war vibe shift, because when I look at how Abigail Spanberger ran and Mikey Sherrill ran, I see Democrats genuinely learning that they can't coast off of anti-Trump vibes, that they can't coast off of sex and gender vibes, saying Trump is trying to, like, this is the flip side of what we were just talking about. With Weigel, you can't just say Trump is trying to take healthcare away from trans kids, for example. Every conversation you have has to go back to the material conditions of the voters, healthcare, affordability. And I feel like after Mamdani won the primary, that became a paradigm that even centrists were looking at and thinking, but you guys can correct me if you think that's wrong.
No, I think that's right. I haven't heard any of that. I haven't heard any of that.
Ryan, what do you think?
Guys messing with our cord over here.
I see people are messing with us.
Marriage definitely factored in Virginia, but yes.
Yeah, I think Sagar's right, and I think like the rage and partisanship is overcoming some of people's discontent around particular issues that they may have with their own party. People have been extremely angry in general since the great financial crisis, but since the pandemic and the pullback of all the social safety net stuff, giving people a glimpse of what it's like to actually have a little bit of breathing room in your bank account and then ripping it away, has driven people completely mad for good reason. Democrats face the wrath of that in 2024, but Republicans never really had. Trump never had any immediate solution to that, and everything he's done is kind of pushing things in the opposite direction. Maybe long term, you could say this tariff stuff or whatever is going to save the country, but not if you do them for 6 months and then pull back and whatever. And then in short term, it's everything is getting worse. Everything is getting harder for people. So I think you're right.
I don't know if we flagged this. Does everybody? I don't know if we forgot to cover it. But the Supreme Court tomorrow is going to hear that tariff case. That's a big deal.
Yeah, that is.
And that if that goes
and
down,
he might be sweating. Yeah.
He has a good shot of taking it on the chin. I think I've mentioned this before. I'd heard a story about banks which are fronting rebates to different companies at a discount rate. They're that confident that the tariffs will be struck.
They're buying basically the ability to get the refunds from the government, which is insane. That's what? How much? 800 billion? What's the
hundreds and hundreds.
It's an enormous amount of money that the courts would order the Trump administration to give to, but the problem is the people who actually paid the tariffs, like us, people who bought things, we're not getting the check. It'll go to the company that raised prices.
It'll go into a dividend. It'll go into the dividend of a stock.
Yeah.
And
I've been buying soybeans, but I don't know about you. I want to set the stage. We're 10 minutes away right now. I just wanted to key back into some election updates. We're 10 minutes away from polls closing in New York at 9 p.m. Eastern, and the early vote has just been absolutely massive.
Yeah, well, there might be more than 2 million votes.
We're tracking for over 2 million. Yeah, at this point right here.
And why don't we go ahead and kick off the inevitable discourse, which I'm excited about what all of these races mean about the future of the Democratic Party. And I mean, one thing you can say genuinely, and what I was going to contribute to the last conversation about like the Dems learned something and that's why they're succeeding. To be honest with you, I think that Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill are just the most default D candidates. Like, I think it has a lot more to do with Trump and the national environment and the fact that people think the economy absolutely sucks. The Republicans are in charge of everything than anything that either of them did in their incredibly unexceptional campaigns, in my opinion. Now,
these are also, as you know, these are wealthier.
Hassan is looking for you over there, by the way.
Educated states. Hassan is.
We'll get Hassan in a second.
Okay.
But you know, something that is really quite dramatic that has happened in New York City is not only the upset of Cuomo, but I cannot emphasize enough how extraordinary it is to remake an entire electorate. You know, I mean, it looks very possible, if not likely, that Zoran is once again going to outperform his polls. And in the primary, he outperformed his polls like by freaking like 20 points because he completely changed who showed up to vote. I mean, that is an absolutely extraordinary thing. And so I see all this, I see all this sort of like centrist cope of, oh, but it's New York City, you can't really learn anything from that. It's not really relevant to the national conversation. How can you look at a candidate and a message, that's the most important part, that is able to compel people who normally would sit out an election to get off their couch, get organized, go out and volunteer, be excited, come out and vote? How can you look at that and say that has no applicability anywhere outside of New York City? Like, New York City residents are just these like bizarre aliens that respond differently than any other voters in the entire country.
Crystal, hold on. They don't have rent in other states. They don't have rent or buses.
Okay, well, first of all, nobody actually gives a shit about the bus outside. Just gonna say. Okay.
Well, the bus, that's fair. That is fair.
Right, let's all be real.
Rent and childcare and affordable food.
Okay,
those are sort of, connective tissue here.
No, let me disagree. I think that's actually quite reductive because the truth is that this is the most liberal city in the country. Like, the idea that you wouldn't have a remaking electorate or the ability to inspire those types of voters in a place that's already predisposed to already lean extremely left on the spectrum, that would be the odd. I mean, frankly, Ryan, you and Crystal, we've all been talking about this for years, which is one of the progressive theories of the case is why do we keep having establishment Democrats in hard D districts? This is the case effectively for like tier 1 victory. But to extrapolate and to say that this is the same type of candidate or the same message, which is going to win in the Midwest or anywhere, like in a real, like in a swingier district, I just don't think that that's accurate. And that's why go ahead, Ryan.
The counter argument would be that a New York mayor has not done this before. You have people like Iglesias who keep pointing at Bill de Blasio, but at Bill de Blasio, God bless his soul, and he'll be here tonight. He can't join the stream though, he said, because he's got CNN contract.
Oh my God!
Really?
He did not change the electorate. Like, he persuaded a lot of liberals in New York City of his liberal vision, and the people who regularly voted for that liberal vision, they went and voted for him. That good for Bill de Blasio. That's great. But that's fundamentally different than what Mamdani did, which is get people who weren't engaged before to get engaged and to get excited about an agenda. And so this would be like, yes, it starts from one of the most democratic areas in the country, but it's always been that. Look at the delta is what I'd say. Look at the change that was produced. So you're not going to get to millions of people coming out in Cleveland or whatever, or statewide in Ohio. But what it does show is that you can
do what the left has been claiming is possible, but not doing for decades, which is excite people and get them out to vote. Bernie Sanders lost in 2020 because he couldn't do that. Like his theory of the case was he was going to change the Democratic Party electorate. He did not. The old electorate came out and they consolidated around Joe Biden.
Including he did not do that even in liberal places. I mean, he won liberal places, but he did not change the electorate in those places. So to, just discard that, well, of course, New York City's liberal, so of course they like Zoran. I mean, at the beginning, look, we both thought Cuomo was this was going to be a wrap and Cuomo was going to run. So, first of all, there's that, incredible. Zoran literally started 0%, standing on the side of the road with the mic and no one really willing to talk to him. That's where he started. He beats Cuomo by 13 points. He totally transforms the electorate. I mean, to look at that and say, oh, there's nothing for any other Democrat to learn. Here's this man who is, number one, phenomenally talented, but number two, has truly done something unique and extraordinary here. And to say, oh, there's nothing for us to learn here.
Well, not nothing.
It's just totally specific to New York City. I mean, I think that's completely.
There is a specific to New York City.
I think we could split the difference there and say that you can learn a lot from that candidate in the same way. Okay, so let's think about the transformational candidates, people like Barack Obama and Donald Trump. Many of them were singularly unique, but the thing that they could maybe share with Zoran Mamdani was the ability to reshape the electorate. But I think what you would learn, because Mamdani himself is a local politician running in a hard key state and one of the most liberal states in the country, what you could probably learn from that is about the weakness of the Democratic establishment, is about mobilization, is about some of the other tactics and the zeroing in on affordability without also bucking to the establishment, anti-media. Those are the takeaways that I would have, right? Not to say I'm going to copy and paste Zoran Mamdani's, not even policy platform per se, but exactly who he is. Free bus is not playing. Graham Plattner's not running on free buses.
But you know what?
I didn't see any buses.
What's going to play? What's going to play everywhere, though, truly, and I think it's more important than people take into consideration is his clear-eyed stance on Israel.
Oh, yes. I was about to mention that.
His willingness to buck the establishment there. It's so ironic in the primary. Cuomo, for sure, thought that this was going to be such a pain point for him, made sure to put Israel at the center and the alleged anti-Semitism of Zoran Mamdani at the center of his campaign. At this point, it's absolutely 100% clear that was an idiotic move. It completely backfired, and people came out to vote for Zoran not in spite of his views on Israel, but some significant portion of the enthusiasm behind him is oh my God, he's actually willing to say the truth about what we all see in our own feeds every single day. And, Graham said something similar to us when we were talking to him about Maine and, the response to him in Maine. And he said something similar. He's like, people are sick of being lied to. They can see this stuff with their own eyes. If you're not willing to acknowledge that, what else are you lying to me about? What else are you willing to cover for? And I think that was an important part that completely transcends New York City, especially when you talk about a Democratic Party base that now has completely turned on Israel at this point.
And I also just want to say, I think what we're seeing is a period in time of transition from, this is very obvious because here we are right now, but old media campaigns and new media campaigns, which with Zoran, Graham Plattner, great example, but you can be in Virginia where it's a blue state, lots of anti-GOP momentum, anti-Trump momentum, same thing with New Jersey, and hang on if you're Cheryl or Spamberger for now. But your positions on these issues, you will start getting punished if you can't talk about them and sound like a normal human being as you are talking about them. And one of the lessons I do think from what we're seeing play out with Zoran Mamdani is you have all of this wealth consolidating against him. And their closing message in the campaign was genuinely calling him a jihadist. That is literally what he was being called, a jihadist.
Insane. Insane.
But people don't believe that. Nobody believes that you think Zoran Mamdani is a jihadist. That's an insane thing to say. I mean, if you must say you think he supports jihad or he supports policies that'll lead to jihad, whatever. But nobody believes that.
That's crazy.
But nobody.
That's a nice middle ground, Emily. I like that.
But my
say he supports jihad, not that he's a jihad.
But this is
he supports. He wants to globalize the jihad.
He
but
wants to globalize the jihad. Yes,
from home.
That's
he wants to work from
what
home
I'm saying
jihad.
is you can make your argument about the Holy Land Foundation. You can do that. Fine. What I'm saying is that nobody believes that you think Zoran Mamdani is a jihadist or he has any interest in enabling jihad in New York City. And so it comes across as just falling completely flat. It's an insane thing to coast on and cling to instead of obsessing like he is over
so many people
affordability.
So many people showed their asses.
Let me
so
pick
many
up
people
on
showed their asses.
I just want to say one more thing.
Ryan was going to say something, but Emily, you finish up.
Well, he had such an interesting ad, one of the most interesting ads of Zoran's campaign. It was a bunch of female rabbis who came out and said, we're Jewish, we support Zoran. And within 10 seconds of that, all they did was talk about how they wanted a safe and affordable city. Larry Krasner is hanging on right now in Pennsylvania. And maybe, Ryan, you can speak to that as well.
There we go.
Despite crime attacks on him, like this stuff, it's not the end all be all. Like Republicans literally here behind this campaign thought it would be.
And I think Mamdani's opponents really blew it when they kept pushing the question of, are you going to visit Israel? And what Mamdani was able to do is a Trump version of the she's for they them and he's for you. So it was the exact same thing. It's the same form. It's like they want me to go to Israel. I'm staying here talking to you. Whatever you think about Israel, I'm here to make sure that the buses are faster, the buses are free, the rent is getting lower, the groceries are cheaper. And so it really fit that exact same theme. And it had the same kind of credibility heuristic around it as well, I think. And whereas he's willing to say it, even if you don't agree with him, like, oh, he's willing to say that. There's no advantage in him saying it. He must have some political courage.
I think if there's any reason and extrapolation, that would be my number one, is because I think you guys can remember this. That got pickup from everybody, from Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, for any of the, if you're talking about the podcast, Curious People. I mean, I don't even particularly love Mr. Zoran, but even, I felt something when he was like, I'm staying here in New York. I was like, oh man, it's like, there's something visceral, like inside when you hear somebody who's running for office just explicitly be like, I don't give a shit about that. Like, I'm staying here and I'm going to work for all of it. Like, that is literally like an embrace of the spirit of like America First that Trump originally ran on and he gave up, right? And so that's why I think it's really important on this issue for Graham, for Zoran, and this is where national politicians cynically just need to seize on this. And they just need to stand up and be like, look, like, let's put all this bullshit aside. We need to worry about what's going on here. Ironically, they can learn it, from Donald Trump. Like, that's part of the, I would say, number one, his most viral clip nationally was on Israel. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's really
go ahead and share my screen, guys. Sorry, you can finish your point, but I just wanted to put the actual results up because we've got some numbers in from New York City at this point. Mac, if you can share my screen so we can see. Yeah. So this is a pretty good chunk of the votes in, 36% of the votes in at this point. And you can see Zoran over 50% at 51.5. Cuomo's at about 40. Sliwa coming in at 8. So Sliwa appears to be underperforming. I don't know where these votes are predominantly coming from. Let me check out. Staten Island has 38% of the vote in. Brooklyn's got 35%. Queens has 33%. Manhattan has 43% of the vote, and Bronx has 28% of the vote. And Brooklyn is Zoran's strongest borough, then probably Queens. But in any case, at this point, at least, it looks like Sliwa is underperforming a bit. And I'm wondering if that is because of Trump coming in and saying to vote for Cuomo.
Yes. So a number that Cuomo is looking at Sliwa for is Cuomo needs to keep Sliwa below 15%. If Sliwa's hitting 15% or higher, that means that there hasn't been enough Republican spillover that has switched over to Cuomo. In the meantime,
except for the basic fact that anybody who was telling pollsters they support Sliwa hates Andrew Cuomo. So the whole idea that you were going to be able to move them was always a little bit difficult. Because
but if you're in the Cuomo camp,
where are they going to move? They're going to move to Mamdani more likely than Cuomo.
Definitely, it's not likely. But the Cuomo camp is really looking at that Sliwa number. They're looking to see what that bleed is.
That they need him under 15 and preferably under 10.
Oh, okay. So they need Sliwa under 10 And so what's their hope? That they can do some
but then they-
shootout
but then
of
they-
45% or something?
Yeah, but then
Yes.
they also need the Sliwa people then to move over to Cuomo.
Right.
Which
Right. Yeah.
that's
That
the
doesn't
part.
seem...
That's the part that, I mean, they weren't going to win Mamdani voters. They had concluded. So the only thing left, and they clearly had no intention of like doing what Mamdani did, which is juice the turnout and inspire people to get out for Cuomo. And so the only thing left was to try to peel away votes from Sliwa. But as Sliwa quite effectively pointed out throughout the campaign, he hates Cuomo. His supporters hate Cuomo. Cuomo hates them. Cuomo has always hated them. Like it's been a vicious.
Cuomo did zero reach
mutual
out to
hatred.
Sliwa people. Like
Cuomo
he
killed their grandmothers. Like he literally, he drove the knife personally into their hearts. Okay, like how could you vote for that man?
And
I
he
gotta say, I have a
oversaw
lot of
the
affection
lockdowns in
for
New York.
Sliwa.
Like
he was awful.
You're going to vote for Cuomo,
Yeah.
like as a Republican?
I mean,
He's probably
the
mean to
Trump
animals
point
too.
Earlier, I did not. Am I the only person who didn't realize that Trump won 30% of New York City? Like that's actually a lot. That's a lot more than I think a lot of people remember. So it's not like
And
there isn't.
That's why
some
Mamdani
demographic.
came. That's why he came out right away, interviewing all those people who voted for Trump, asking them why.
Or the same time that we did our
Right.
Trump AOC votership, where there was
Right.
a huge overlap between the AOC and the Trump voter. I want to give one more point to Sauger on can this happen elsewhere around the country? And something that we really haven't mentioned is the DSA factor here. There are 10,000 DSA members here that were like the blood and the muscle of this campaign. And that doesn't exist in other major cities. Like LA, I think it's like 2,000 to 3,000 in LA max. Like those numbers are going up because of Mamdani, but like the reason he was able to get so many bodies out in the street is largely because of DSA, which is a uniquely New York factor.
Good point.
there's
Yeah,
also-
I mean, it gets to an organization point, and I mean, look, I'm sure we'll be talking about this, for weeks now, because there's going to be a lot of he's not the future, he is the future discourse. There'll be some good cable news clips out of Morning Joe, and all that for the next for the next few
they
weeks.
kind of bent the knee to Mamdani, to be honest with you.
They did, but I see Joe's
Mika,
feed is
they
RT.
saw the writing on the wall.
Right, but he's retweeting Spanberger. All he wants is to be back at Grace. Is it Gracie Mansion? Is that right? He wants to be back at Gracie Mansion for dinner. Okay, that's all this guy cares. At the end of the day, So actually, by the way, Decision Desk just called the race for Zoran Mamdani, which is interesting. Or projects him to win. So I guess it's more of a question there for. I mean, it's not obviously not official.
Yeah.
I will note in the poly market.
I have
go ahead.
One other result note. Those Pennsylvania Supreme Court races have been called too. So
For the Democrats. Got it.
Democrats won all 3 of those Pennsylvania Supreme Court races. By the way, those Georgia statewide races, it looks like the Democrats are going to win those by like friggin' 25 to 30 points.
Wow.
Like,
Did you just lose, Crystal?
blowout. What's that?
I'm
not
curious
hearing
if there's
us, Ryan?
also I'm curious if there's also data center factors in the Georgia races, which again haven't really been on anybody's radar, but are hyper local. Those are the things that I know that Weigel is going to keep following it, but some of these hyper local concerns are catching Republicans off guard, to be honest, as they digest these results. I don't think anyone had high hopes for this election day within the last 3 to 6 months. I don't think anybody had high hopes, but this might turn out to be, what did Obama say in 2014? Shellacking.
So
That
shellacking.
wasn't even on the level of what they expected.
Yeah, it's Go ahead.
Quickly, Sagar, the polls going around about how we were talking about lesser of two evils dynamics, people do not like national Democrats. They do not like national Republicans. Democrats had an advantage on RCP's congressional ballot average by just 3 points, but national Democrats, as establishment, spent the entire summer freaking out about the David Shore analysis and all of that, Sosnick analysis. They're freaking out. They know that, and they're having this rout. So 2 of those things are happening at the same time, and that's pretty interesting too.
Yeah, I think looking at least right now, I was mentioning about Polymarket, the odds are surging right now for a 10 to 20% margin for Zoran. So not the original kind of blowout scenario that I talked about. That does not preclude winning by 50, to be very clear, just not like 60% or whatever that some of those had been originally projected.
It does make kind of sense if Sliwa's vote total drops,
right,
and you do end up with more or less a Cuomo-Zoran race that's effectively a replay of the Democratic primary. I mean, Zoran beat Cuomo by 12 or 13, I think, in the Democratic primary. So, wouldn't be surprising to see a similar margin. That's what he sits at right now with 36% of the vote in. Ryan, I wanted to get you to talk a little bit about these ballot initiatives in Maine, because I know DropSite did a story on the way that Graham Plattner is using his campaign, doing sort of like a test run of the organizing strength of his campaign. And Mac, you can actually throw my screen, while Ryan talks, you could throw my screen back up. We've got some of the results in about 21% of the vote reporting on these Maine ballot initiatives.
Yeah, so the number one, which is the one that's up here now, would do two things. One of them is not that controversial even among Democrats anymore, which is voter ID. Like I think Democrats within a few years are going to be pretty comfortable with just like, okay, fine, voter ID, especially because their coalition is changing and their demographic is now becoming ones that are more likely to have ID as they become less working class and Republicans become more working class. So the Yes campaign, which is funded by Leonard Leo, two Leonard Leo organizations funneled money to the Republican State Party that then funded this campaign and then wrote the initiative. The main thing they're running on is secure our elections, voter ID. But what it really does is put a huge crimp in absentee voting. And so in Maine, it's very, very common for absentee voting to get used. 40% of votes were cast through mail absentee voting last time. So this would significantly erode that. So what Blattner has done over the last couple weeks is kind of organize his campaign and push it towards defeating this amendment. They did a door knocking campaign. They had in 21. Nathan Bernard at DropSite did a piece for us. You can go read, but they had 21 different canvassing operations around the state where they had 3,000 volunteers. I think they touched 40,000 voters. They cut an ad on against it. It was the polling has been kind of neck and neck. It's really 50-50. So it could come down to turnout because it's
and Ryan,
such an off year.
Are they just organizing on that one initiative, or they're organizing around the red flag one as well?
That's the only one they organized around. The others is the other one gun rights, or what was the?
It's basically a red flag law.
Oh, I think everybody's for that. Basically, I think it's like. The Democrats are for that. Obviously, not everybody. Obviously, lots of libertarian Republicans. I think those are a bad idea. But it's interesting that he's not organizing around that one, and that goes to the gun point, where he's more of a pro-gun Democrat. And so while I don't even know where he is on number two. He did in our interview say he wanted somewhere. Okay,
I saw somewhere that he supported red flag.
But it's interesting that he threw his organizational support behind the number one amendment rather than the number two.
While we're on the topic of ballot initiatives, can I give a property tax update?
Let's hear it,
Sagar. Let's put it up there. Let's put it up there, Mac. There it is. 80% Texans have voted for their own demise. You get what you deserve. Every young person who moved from California to Texas, you deserve this. You deserve this because you didn't come out to vote and you don't follow the news. And the boomers just gave themselves a massive tax cut. All of you are going to be increasing the amount that you pay for your schools while they get tax-free Social Security and free health care paid off of your back in a no-income state. So when your school salaries are $32,000 a year, unpegged to inflation, and no teachers want to stay in the state, and your kids are getting shitty subpar educations, you know exactly who to blame. I can't believe this. 80%. It's insane.
When are these Californians going to start turning this state into a liberal mecca? What's going on?
No, here's the thing, Ryan. They are turning it into California because this is what they already did in California. They already locked their property tax for boomers, and now they're doing the exact same thing. So I'm honestly, I'm disgusted.
How does this affect the comedy mothership? Was that property tax counter effect here?
You know, I won't put anyone on blast. I actually did send it to a few prominent Texas comedians asking them to speak out, and they didn't do it. So
that's how you use your platform.
I said, listen, you guys live in Texas.
Well,
You should say something.
Wait, aren't they going to make up the revenue? Didn't your governor say that he's going to institute a 100% tax on New Yorkers?
No, 100% tariff on New
Yorkers moving to Texas.
I'm sure that will find its way to the schools, and it won't find its way to some bullshit like some corrupt Ken Paxton scandal.
You don't tariff a person.
Yeah, so I'm sure that it won't find its way into Ken Paxton's bank account.
Not after 1864.
God, okay, that's fine. Listen, you guys, you get everything you deserve when you're all paying $50,000 a year to attend, Texas A&M's sub campus in Corpus Christi. Don't fucking come crying to me. We're not bailing you out, all right? And for every boomer that voted for this, screw you. All right, we can move on.
Well, everything's bigger in
Texas.
Texas.
Let's just take a moment to. I have to borrow a joke from a friend of the show who looked at Ryan and Griffin's live shot and referred to it as Night at the Roxbury DSA
That's accurate.
edition.
That's accurate.
Look at these two.
Yeah.
Look at these two handsome gentlemen. Ryan's haircut, Griffin's suit.
While we're
we
talking about how handsome we are, why don't we step back and show us where we are for just a second for the stream here? We are in the beautiful Brooklyn Paramount Theater. It's beginning to fill up with people here. We're gonna have a pretty good angle on the speech and the crowd, and we got Abby Phillips behind us right now, CNN, I believe.
Huge.
Abby
so
Phillips,
we're in the
no
prime time spot. Ryan is getting lots of attention.
Naomi Klein says hello.
Naomi Klein, do you want to say anything?
Hi, Naomi. What's up?
Thanks for coming on.
We need some happiness. We need some joy. We're gonna get it. Yeah.
Were you out on the streets today?
Yeah.
What did you say?
I mean, a lot of people were very happy to have voted. We were, I was canvassing with Jews for Zorham.
Excellent.
We actually went back to the Grand Army Plaza where we had this big action a year and a half ago outside Chuck Schumer's house, the Seder in the streets.
Uh-huh.
And I had given a speech then, and I had said to Chuck that the kids are with us now. And
what did he say?
Just elected
Yeah.
Zoran Mamdani.
The kids are with you, I think.
What did Chuck say to that?
This whole movement and this generational divide that is ruptured over the genocide is a huge part of why it's possible for Zoran to be elected, which he will be. I know he hasn't been yet, but yeah. I mean, and the other thing that I tried to convey in the canvassing I've been doing the past couple of days is just like, even though these disgusting ads are all about fear of Mamdani, it's actually fear of the coalition. It's actually fear of the possibility, what becomes possible when people connect across divides. So that was my I feel that, yeah.
Were regular people coming up to you, or were you mostly just going to the doors you were supposed to do?
We were outside of a polling place, like a voting place. So people were talking to people as they went in, as they came out. Yeah. I mean, people who voted for Zoran were very happy to talk about how they voted for him or were going to vote for him. People who didn't were like,
fair enough.
I didn't get into any arguments.
Excellent.
What about you? What did you see today?
I have only been here for a couple hours, but everybody I talked to was like, oh yeah, I vote for that guy, or I voted for that person, or just regular people on the street.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
and they were saying I think he's going to win by a lot. They were pretty.
I hope so. Yeah.
Am I correct in saying Chuck Schumer said he didn't say who he voted for in the?
Say who he voted for.
Who do you think he voted for?
I think he fucking voted for Cuomo.
Yeah, I think no doubt about it.
Yeah,
I think so
he
too.
should resign. I mean, if New York overwhelmingly elects Zoran,
What do you think he did?
he's supposed to represent the city, right?
What do you think he did that Bernie didn't do? He managed to basically change the electorate and bring people out and excite people who hadn't been involved in politics before. Bernie didn't quite pull that off in 2020. Why do you think? Is it because it's a concentrated media market and he was able to reach more people more directly? Going from state to state in the primary caucus system, it's like you go to a state, you have no idea there's an election going on, and it's just all of a sudden on a random day on August 5th or whatever.
He would be the first person to say that he is part of a lineage and part of a movement that what he's doing wouldn't have been possible without Bernie. I think that part of what it means to not be the first to try is that there was more of a sense of play, like more of a sense of like actual like joy, having fun. And I think the fact that people in New York channeled all of their fear and rage about Trump into electing Mamdani and doing it in the spirit of being like not just anti-fascist, but the antithesis of fascism, like in terms of fascists want uniformity, fascists want this like intense discipline, and the whole campaign was about celebrating the cultural and linguistic diversity of the city. It was this love letter to the city. It was about like, hey, like let's not be afraid of cities. They're actually kind of incredible. They can be better, yes, but they're amazing. And there's, I think, in the face of so much like anti-urban rhetoric coming from Trump, it was really about time for New York to fall back in love with itself.
It really did come across that Zoran loves New York City. And it really also looked like Andrew Cuomo really dislikes New York City.
Yeah, and all the billionaires who were threatening to leave, like also
right, vote for us or we're going to leave. It's
right,
not
like have no commitment to this place. And whereas his whole campaign was like, I love this city enough that I'd like to be able to afford it and stay with my family and stay with my community and friends. Like it's the polar opposite messages. So I love that, you know, like fuck, like, you know, the people who want to blast themselves into outer space and build their bunkers and just extract from cities and extract from humans. Like, yeah, it was so sharp, that delineation. So yeah, I think it was different. Yeah. But
Curtis Sliwa too. He seems to authentically love New York. We'll give him.
I like a true New York character.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Anyway, good.
Nice to see you too. We'll be around.
Yeah. All right. First interview down.
All right, there we go.
Yeah, well done, boys.
Nice Naomi Klein for Jews for Zoran.
I've got an interesting tweet here from Chris Lascivita. Is that how you say his name? Lascivita, Trump campaign manager. So he says, a bad candidate and bad campaign have consequences. The Virginia governor's race is example number one.
That's cool.
That's the Coke. We've got our first Trump World Coke here. Breaking news.
Oh, that's
Look,
so
guys,
funny.
everyone just be honest. This was a disaster night for the Republicans. All right.
And
it was
two
an
things can be
absolute
true at the same time.
Yeah.
What sucks?
Yeah, that's true. You're right, Emily. But it's also like at a certain point, like we all just need to just be honest here. Like it was an absolute, like it's not just shellacking. Like it was an ass kicking. And
what's
like,
the theory?
they need to wake the fuck up.
What?
I believe she's
wakes the fuck up in which way?
Well, I think what they need to
How do they wake up?
I think they need to wake up in a variety of ways. Number one is shut down healthcare, SNAP, tariffs. I think the tariffs, the chaos that initially happened under Doge, people don't feel like the country is in control. I think with Trump in particular, he's making the presidency into like a mockery in terms of his own like personal whims, from tariffs to, you know, whatever, the pardon power to whatever, the golden Oval Office, the ballroom, the entire focus on that. Nothing seems to be entirely focused on actually making people's lives better. And I think that, you know, if you check the timeline, distant Republicans are being a little honest about this. They're like, I'm seeing them just talk about the fact that low propensity voters not showing up. And it's very clear where the midterm elections and all of that is going to be trending. And the White House, like, they just completely have their heads up their ass, because I saw Scott Bessent today be like, Trumponomics is working. Like, this is the greatest economy. Inflation is down. And I'm just like, dude, what? You know, like, this just sounds, how can we have lived through a world where we all made fun of Bidenomics, which we all did here on this show, as I recall, right? And
I was
then,
just talking to a source literally about this.
It's like they're doing the same playbook. And the problem for Trump is that, you know, the problem for the Republicans too is Trump is so petty, is that he will attack anybody who tries to wake up the White House on this very message. And look, shit is literally falling out of the sky. There was a huge plane crash this evening. We don't know the exact cause. Like, I'm not going to say, but it's pretty hard not to at least get a little worried when there's a huge government shutdown. And the Secretary of Transportation just said today that next week, if there's no shutdown, or if there's no end to the shutdown, that they're going to have to close vast swaths of U.S. airspace. By the way, like, Thanksgiving, am I the only guy who's like, shit, maybe I should cancel my flight for Thanksgiving? The airport that I would have flown out of has a 3.5-hour line. Like, these are all things where your life is not getting better, like at a very tangible level. And yeah, no shit, people show up to vote and are angry about that. So You've got the cost of living. You've got the immigration stuff. You know, in terms of, again, chaos, people not feeling like stuff is under control. You have Trump himself basically using like national power as a vehicle for like his own literal like personal whims or whatever he wants. And then you put all that stuff together, and yeah, it's not a shocker why people are going to come out to vote. Like it's just the routine is tired. It no longer has the political juice that it all once had when shit's falling apart. So that's my.
They also have a fine in New Jersey. So this is a hilarious problem. They have a fine candidate in New Jersey.
Absolutely.
By the way, they also did all like last year. People were very upset about Winston Steers run, and she's about to take the stage behind me right now.
And guys, I want to bring our attention back to the New York City mayor's race. So on the one hand, Decision Desk HQ has called it. On the other hand, Michael Lang, who is a great analyst, he just tweeted 1 minute ago, with each ballot drop from Election Day votes, Cuomo is narrowing Mamdani's lead. Mamdani leads by 8% with 1.17 million votes recorded. Don't call the race. There are 1 million plus ballots left.
Wow.
So New York City mayor's race may be pretty
nail
close.
Biter?
Might be a nail biter.
What do you bet that then?
See if we can find Michael Lang.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing that's pretty clear here is I think Trump's gambit helped. It helped Cuomo because it looks like those Sliwa voters did decide to ditch him, and he is dramatically underperforming his polls, and did decide to ditch him and vote for Cuomo instead. When Trump said, this is the guy and you've got to do it, you know, and he's threatening the city. If you don't, we're going to take your funds, etc. I mean, it appears that the president's intervention may have had a positive impact for Cuomo here at the end of the day.
Seeing the early results with Sliwa only at 8 really told me that there was some bleed, that there was some transfer of voters to Cuomo.
What are we looking at now?
Moments.
Like what? You want to put the latest up?
Yeah.
Do you want to just put his tweet up there, Crystal? Do you want to just put that up?
Well, let me just put the actual numbers up so you guys can see it. Hold on. Okay, Mac, if you can go ahead and share that screen.
It also begs the question, what would this look like in a one-on-one if Sliwa was completely out of the race?
Well, that's true too. I mean, this is looking like Zoran, may win it, but it's not going to be, it's not going to be a landslide. It's not going to be over 50%. That's what it's looking like. Now,
But that's 60% of the vote, right, Crystal? And there's 1.3 million. Yeah.
Yeah. So, where are those votes coming from? What's still out? Or is it still a lot of Brooklyn that's out? These districts in Brooklyn have only 9% reporting and 12% reporting and less than 1% reporting in Greenpoint. So maybe there's a lot out still in Brooklyn. You can see overall 60%, in the first tranche that came in was the early vote. The early vote was strongly for Zoran. As the day of votes come in, that seems to be going pretty well for Cuomo. So, like I said, Decision Desk HQ has already called it, but I haven't seen any other outlets do it. And Michael Lang is a very good in-depth analyst, and he's saying, "Hey, this thing is not over yet. So we definitely got to keep our eye on it."
We're going to grab Michael right now. You guys talk. We're going to grab Michael. So
I can note this. Right now Zoran is at 100% on Polymarket. So I don't think it's in dispute, at least from the betting markets. And there's some $500,000 that are in here right now as to whether he's going to win. I guess it's about a narrower margin.
What is the margin?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know then. We had a whole discussion earlier. That would be a little bit detrimental if it is like a shootout with Cuomo and you barely are able to pull it out, if it's like some 1% or something like that. So I don't know. It actually, that would be, I would be a little stressed out about that if I were him.
Yeah, well, the things we were saying are true, that the larger the margin of victory, the more of a mandate, the more likely he's going to be to accomplish his political goals. and, implement the promises that he made on the campaign trail. The other thing is, if you've got a situation where you can basically say, oh, well, if we didn't have Sliwa in the race serving as a spoiler, then this would have been a totally different result.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of cope that will be coming from the Cuomo and the actually, yeah, wow. I mean, I have to reprocess all this in real time. But, if you're Chuck Schumer and if Curtis Sliwa is able to basically if Curtis Sliwa is allegedly the spoiler, right, Ryan? If you're there, Ryan, you can jump in with me. I think otherwise I'm the only person on the stream. Nobody wants to hear from just me. Broadly, whenever I think about it, is that
sorry, the dog was breaking down the door.
No worries. Mine is sitting over there, and she's like, "You're gonna take me?" She's like, "You're not usually up at this time. What are you doing?" I don't know, Crystal. I mean, I think, wow. I mean, I really do have to reprocess things just in terms of if it is let's say 1%, that is a huge boon to Chuck Schumer. Like that, if I'm Schumer, I would run again, because then everyone can just say if it was a shootout between Cuomo and Zoran, then Cuomo would have won. Even though I'm not, 100% that that's necessarily true, but that's definitely one thing, and it will definitely lessen any of the potential power, that he would have for let's say in Albany. So we don't really know. We don't. Yet.
Let's, Mac, you can reshare my screen actually, and put the results back up there. We did get another tranche here that puts Zoran back at 50%.
Yeah.
So, which is also, so far the day of votes have been going for Cuomo. This indicates, increased his lead here a bit, looks a bit better for him, but in any case, it's not, it's not totally, there's still some drama here.
That is really, honestly, wow. Late election twist.
I think we could say there's drama just to keep people watching. But where are these where's 150,000 Cuomo voters coming from to close this gap?
To Lang's point, Ryan, there's
have...
1.5 million. There's over 2 million votes cast. Couple 100,000 if they broke in that same.
They'd have to break 70-30. You guys in the chat go do the math. But yeah, Cuomo would have to win 70 to 75% of the votes, from here on out. If let's say there's 2.2 million or so, because we're now looking at we're almost at 1. I'm doing the math in my head, but they total it up right there, 1.56 million.
Yeah.
So there's another, let's say 700,000 to be super generous.
Yeah.
And he would have to win those, 350 to 250. Or I guess 400 to 300, he'd lose. So
MSNBC just projected Zoran as the winner as well.
Right. So
I don't think there's Cuomo votes that are out there. I don't think that. I think that's what. To Ryan's point, I don't think Cuomo's going to win. We were all kind of in this. We're all in margin watch. I think right now.
I also
think 50%.
It's hard to, and maybe he. Can win the remaining 600,000 votes and narrow it. I'd be surprised if he did. Election day does favor him. It's an older, that's an older electorate, and it's a more traditional electorate. So, he is expected to do better on election day than he is.
Sorry, one second, Mac. Can you load those religious stats in there? That's well, I'll let the results speak for themselves. But Mac is going to load in some religious results from some NBC News. Exit polls, and they actually broke it down. So I'll read from some of them as Mac starts to load some of them up. But they have for Protestant, here we go. So Protestant, Christian, 41% there from Mamdani, Catholic, 30% Mamdani, Jewish, they have actually 60% Andrew Cuomo, other, so I'm assuming atheist and or none, overwhelming there for Zoran Mamdani. So, maybe Trump's gambits and all of that propaganda campaign actually may have worked to a limited extent. At the same time, you have 30% of the electorate, which is going to vote there for Zoran. I also would personally really like to see the demographic breakdown, which is obviously a point that we've made here multiple times on the show. But there you go. You can see the results there a little bit for you can see a little bit of the results there for yourselves in terms of the demographic breakdown. I think there was a borough breakdown. No, we don't have that. We do have the borough breakdown. Mac, can you load that in there? We just got the link. from MJ in our chat. And maybe we can take a little bit of a look here at the boroughs. You, Crystal, as a former New Yorker, you're going to have to explain this stuff to the audience because it doesn't mean as much to me about the Bronx and maybe whatever some of the standouts there might actually be.
Well, I mean,
you can be our whisperer.
Zoran's strongest borough will be Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Brooklyn is very young, gentrified, like also very diverse, then the next best borough for him will be Queens, which is extremely very diverse, all kinds of immigrants from all over the world, lot of Asians, just a very vibrant immigrant communities there. Next, I don't know if Bronx or Manhattan will be better for him. Manhattan, you've got wealthier individuals, whiter, wealthier, Upper West Side, Upper East Side should be places that Cuomo does well. You've got a significant Jewish population there as well that I'm sure he's courting. Bronx is pretty mixed, but you've got some very low income areas. You've got some heavily black areas there. And then Staten Island. It's very Republican. This will be Sliwa / Cuomo kind of stronghold. All the Jersey Shore people, remember from that reality show, those were like Staten Island people. So, by the way, my sister-in-law lives there, and I love her dearly.
I'll be honest, I loved that show. Hey, I think the AP just called it for Zoran. So there you go. Officially going to be the mayor of New York City. So we are all on margin watch. I don't know. Maybe no offense to Mr. Lang, but he might have been a bit premature in that, because clearly the AP and others are saying that there's not enough votes left in the electorate for him not to win. It does look like,
and his
margin
is holding
is strong
at
50%
now.
Yeah, he's holding strong.
He's up at 50.4% on the New York Times website. So I think he's got a pretty good shot to have about a 10-point margin and be up over 50%, which is, the fact, I think him being,
I think
not having the
talking
talking point.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that sounds like victory night.
At, Zoran?
I think it's guys in the Zoran party reacting to the fact that the AP is calling the race.
Gotcha.
Yes,
okay.
That's exactly what it is.
That's what you're hearing.
This is the crowd fired up at the news that the AP has called it for Mamdani, which this was truly like an improbable run from launching in last fall at one generously at 1%, and then expected to get beaten in the primary, to now at before 10 o'clock, 9:38 p.m. to have the AP calling it,
having it called
for Mamdani. There were even this, as I was walking around today, people were saying maybe they'll call it at 9:03. They were hoping for such a landslide that they could call it immediately. 9:38 is not bad.
9:38 is great
for a seriously contested election. And now we can all be, I think, happy for Andrew Cuomo, who's put out of his misery. Like, he was utterly miserable all through the primary and then into the general. I want to thank whoever pushed him to run in the general, because I appreciate when Andrew Cuomo suffers, and so they only extended his suffering for an extra several months.
Getting to have two separate Andrew Cuomo complete humiliations is really more than we could have possibly asked for.
What have we done to deserve this? We don't even deserve this. And yet here we are.
Here we are. It is a glorious thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's give the guy credit where it's due. He came out of nowhere. Whenever Ryan and Emily interviewed him, I was like, they're wasting their time. This guy doesn't have a chance, right? I'll be honest, that was my thought.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, I was
like,
what do you
think it'll be Cuomo by 40?
Yeah, I said that. I was like, Cuomo by 40. That's my own personal disdain for some liberals. But look, they bucked their party establishment. They had a fascinating campaign. They got national attention. They slayed the Israel shibboleth in the New York City and in probably national Democratic politics, and that deserves credit. People who are able to come from nowhere, who are basically my age, and be political entrepreneurs, that's something. You can't ignore that, in the U.S. But in a lot of ways, now the real work begins. You've got New York Post and all the other people allied against you. You have Albany, who is going to be watching that margin very closely. You have, a president, a White House, a Republican establishment. You're the new AOC. Every single thing that you do is going to be a chyron on Fox News. You're going to be one of the most scrutinized people in the world. Your margin for error is zero. Whenever it comes to midterm ads, every Republican is going to be running. You're going to be the new Nancy Pelosi in terms of the boogeyman for a lot of different places. So you ascend to a new mantle, and but at the same time, you deserve credit. You always deserve credit for a win. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy to do this. You're going to be the mayor of the biggest city in the United States of America. That's a big deal. Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. And, we saw, remember what happened with India Walton in Buffalo, where she mounts this improbable campaign. She takes out the corrupt incumbent, but the corrupt incumbent decides to run again in the general election, just like Andrew Cuomo. Not that he's the incumbent in New York City, but, is this prevailing power in the state. And so being able to overcome that, to win in the general election is quite extraordinary, and looking like he's going to have a shot to, hit that 50% mark, which means they can't say that Sliwa was just a spoiler. And if it had been him versus Cuomo, it would have gone differently. Kyle has arrived for us to do actual champagne socialism here, guys. He's got some champagne. That's that fun. We're.
Let's bring in Lyle.
What's the brand of that?
Lyle?
Stop doxing. Stop it. Stop doxing. The dog is also
Jesse Waters' brother.
Crystal, I will say the one thing is we do not condone alcohol use on this podcast, as you've always stood with me firmly.
It's a special occasion. It's not every night that a Democratic Socialist wins in New York City.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We never condone alcohol use here on Breaking Points. But anyways, look, it's crazy. You guys are breaking up, yes. Griffin and Ryan. Just in.
We're breaking up.
Just a heads up.
I have a little report from Sears, if we're interested.
Yeah, what you got, Em?
Go ahead, Emily.
Well, Winsome Earl Sears just gave a very clumsy, awkward concession speech to a crowd of about 100. I've seen bigger crowds at the primary victory parties. It's pretty brutal. She gave what seemed more than anything like a self-help speech. It was shot through religion.
We have a guest, so sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, go for it.
Hey, can you guys hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Right.
Yeah, we hear you.
Let's bring her up. Former gubernatorial candidate.
I'll hold the mic for you.
Cynthia Nixon, welcome to the Drop Site and Breaking Point stream. So were you out canvassing today?
I was in rehearsal today, but my wife was canvassing in Washington Heights.
What accounts for this victory?
What accounts for this victory is Zohran Mamdani, who is a once-in-a-generation leader, and the movement that he has built, 90,000 volunteers, but also that we have finally found a way to show the Democratic Party we can actually offer an alternative to MAGA that makes us the party of working people again, and not just saying, vote for us, we're not Donald Trump, but actually vote for us because we're offering you concrete things that are going to make your lives better.
One thing that he seemed to do in the immediate wake of the primary was consolidate a lot of the institutional Democratic support in a way that was almost surprising. Like the labor unions and others who Cuomo had kind of had a stranglehold on for a very long time. He was able to say, no, I won the primary. And what did he do, as far as you understand, to be able to do that? Because if those institutional forces stay on the sidelines and then move over to Cuomo, maybe you have a different race.
I wish that the leaders of the Democratic Party did that, but I think in terms of the unions and that more institutional support, I think they got into a room with Zohran and they watched what he was able to do in the primary. They watched how he was able to mobilize and inspire people, going from 2%, almost no name recognition, against a multi-term dynastic governor. And I think, people are skeptical about Zohran. It's hard to be skeptical once you get into a room with him and you talk to him.
Kathy Hochul said recently that she heard the people
at the rally saying tax the rich, but it's going to take more than one energetic rally to change her mind. What is it going to take to change her mind? Because he's going to need her in order to get a lot of his agenda done, but I would assume that she's going to need him as well.
Yes, I think that Zoran, needs all of us to make his platform a reality. But I think it's very important to the older generation of Democrats to actually see the writing on the wall and seeing finally we have a way of offering people something that is going to invigorate the party. And I think you ignore the writing on the wall at your peril.
Did you, last thing from me, and then maybe when you were watching the campaign, was there anything where you were like, damn, wish I'd have done that?
No. I mean, you can't compare me and Zoran. You just
different ball game.
Totally. Yeah.
We had another question from another team member. Emily asked, do you think audiences respond to Gilded Age like they respond to Zoran? The parallels between that time and now?
I mean, I think the thing about the Gilded Age, it's a beautiful show, and it shows a lot of the glitter of the Gilded Age. And I think we're living in another Gilded Age. And I think that Zoran is laying bare kind of the horrors of an era like the Gilded Age that we're living in now, where there is so much income inequality and people cannot put food on the table or get health care.
Right. Well, Cynthia Nixon, thank you. So last one, definitely last.
Okay.
Because I remember you were also at AOC's 2018
Yes.
primary night victory. How do you compare that night to the Zoran's primary night to this night?
I think it feels very the same. I think it's all in a line. And I think, the granddaddy of us all is Bernie Sanders, and we are all Bernie Sanders children. And I think AOC's victory was improbable and magical in the same way that Zoran's is. And I think that we are just going to keep going.
Thank you so much.
Back to y'all.
Oh my God,
Big guest.
I'm so starstruck, guys.
Sagar and Emily
Holy
both
shit.
fangirling so hard.
Yeah, I love the Gilded Age. I self-identify as a Miranda. Seeing her on our screen, I was like, holy shit. I was like, I can't believe this. I love you, Cynthia. I know you can't hear me. I love you. Thank you for all the great memories.
I want to pick up on the AOC point, because I think it's an important one. And that question you asked is something we talked about during the primary as well. When AOC won this improbable victory against Democratic leader, basically caught him napping, right? Turnout was low. They didn't take her seriously. She comes out of nowhere and she wins, right? We thought that was, that's when Kyle is launching Justice Democrats. Like, you had the Bernie movement. Like, we thought that was the moment that I believe now actually is. And the reason that I think that things are different and more for ground for the Zorans, the Graham Platners, the Abdul Al-Sayeds, the Shoaib Chakrabartis, these sorts of candidates across the country is because the Democratic base is in a very different place now. They are disgusted with Democratic leadership in a way they've never been before. They're done being told. Jay Jones is an example of this. Like, oh, that you can't have that candidate. They did something naughty. We have to cancel. They're done with that, right? That's not happening anymore. And they see that the people who are actually really fighting Trump in this moment tend to be from the Bernie AOC wing of the party. They also see that the status quo mode of politics is what has enabled Trump's rise and allowed him to retake the White House. So, that's why I say I think now is actually a much more fertile moment for candidates like Zoran, not just in New York City, but in, Democratic primaries across the country. And he's a real canary in the coal mine of kind of what's possible. I think he's going to inspire a lot of people, not just in the city, but across the country, to say, hey, if he can pull this off, such an improbable victory, like, maybe I could do it. Maybe this candidate here, maybe I should believe in this candidate. Maybe I should get behind them. In that way, he truly is a game changer and an indication of the times we're living in.
Yeah, look, Zoran is
next, if you go for it, Sagar, but then we've got another guest.
Last comment from me, and I'll hop off. I think Crystal is right. I think if you are a progressive leftists, you should celebrate. A lot of your arguments against the Democratic establishment not only have power at this moment, but you now have an electoral feather in your cap that you can point to. That's an important thing that has eluded the wing of the party now for many years. In a lot of the ways you have, actual small d Democratic legitimacy, and you do have, a playbook. Like I've said, I'm not saying he's the model, I think, for Democrats across the country, but the way that you're able to win is one that has now been validated in a major Democratic race. And so if you're a Democrat in any place in the country, especially in a blue state, you should be paying attention to that. And in particular, I think what you really need to learn from this campaign is how many of the shibboleths and the norms and the arguments of old are slayed. And we are living in the Trump Zoran era now, right? And whatever that is. And to Cynthia Nixon's to point, and now we can have a real shoot off. We can solve, I think, some of the existential questions of our time, which we're not capable. We're calling back to our Dick Cheney discussion earlier, in which everybody, it recalls the George Carlin line, like it's a big club and you're not in it. And I think that club, is taking a big beating tonight. And so, yeah, I think that's my major takeaway. If anything else, has anybody anything else before I go?
Insane hatred of Tucker Carlson.
I just think that's a really optimistic.
Responsible and hypocritical you are being. I mean, these tweets from Ted Cruz, I'm going to read you next, are a great example of this. So just a month ago, he tweeted this. He said, "They don't kill you because you're a Nazi. They call you a Nazi so they can kill you. Political violence is a left-wing phenomenon. Enough is enough. We need to shut it down." And then in response to Fuentes and Tucker this week, he tweeted this. "Trump's bombing of the Ayatollah's nuclear facilities made the little Nazi mad. Good." So now you're turning around and you're calling somebody that you don't like a Nazi. You're doing this out of blind rage because you're so angry that the conservative base's attitudes are rapidly changing, that Nick Fuentes is getting national attention, and so you have turned around and in response, you are compromising your own values in anger, which is such a dangerous precedent to set. And unfortunately for you guys, yes, the attitudes are national attention, and so you have turned around and in response, you are compromising your own values in anger, which is such a dangerous precedent to set. And unfortunately for you guys, yes, the attitudes are changing, so again, it makes sense why this group is incredibly frantic. You are so blinded by your ridiculous, insane hatred of Tucker Carlson that you cannot see the conservative base's attitude, little Nazi mad.
with big dicks in the women's locker room. And that's why I'm getting kicked out. And I want to make sure the girls know.
I'm sure many of you have already seen this video. I don't know all the details yet, but supposedly this man, who now identifies as a woman, was many of you have already seen this video. I don't know all the details yet, but supposedly this man, who now identifies as a woman, was in the women's locker room at a Gold's Gym in LA, exposing himself, saying lewd comments to women. And it isn't the first time that it happened. When he was confronted by the woman in this video, Tish, asking him, "Why are you in the women's locker room?" It caused a scene. The police were called, and Tish was kicked out of Gold's Gym. That man was also escorted out by police. Now, regardless of politics, we should all agree that women have the right to feel safe and comfortable in a women's locker room without having to see a grown man naked. So, Tish, thank you. I applaud you for your bravery, for sticking up for yourself and for other women. I personally spoke to Tish. She's very stressed out, having lost her gym membership, a place she loves to go, losing over 100 pounds there. So I am personally going to help her find a new gym in the LA area. I don't
in the women's locker room. And that's why I'm getting kicked out. And I want to make sure the girls know.